Settle in, listeners, because tonight's story hits straight to the bone. Picture a man who used to own the entire Skyline, now shivering outside a cheap neon-lit liquor store. That wool coat on his back, $6,000, draping him like a dead man's suit. But the bitterest pill is not his ruined empire. It is the woman sitting in that brightly lit bakery across the avenue. The woman he broke because she refused to be his prize. Now she is laughing, holding some other guy's hand. You and I know the cruelest irony of fate. You can buy the whole block, but you cannot buy back a beating heart once you throw it away. Where are you tuning in from tonight? Drop your city in the comments below, and let us watch this beautiful disaster unfold together. The camera pulls off a beautiful trick here with the holiday lights. They scatter across the dirty snow, tricking lonely souls into feeling warm for just a second. But Ronan knows it is a complete illusion. Look at him on the corner of Belmont and Archer. His fists are buried deep in that designer coat, shaking like a forgotten stray. It is tragic. Really, 3 years ago, this man was a god in these streets. He held the money and the terror. Then one catastrophic month washed his entire slate clean. The lesson here is deeply brutal. You can build a towering fortress out of other people's fear, but when the walls finally crack, you are the only one left trapped under the rubble. The man he used to be is entirely dead, and this lingering shadow is all that is left behind. Watch this passing bus roar by, burying his boots in a wave of freezing gray slush. Not a single person even turns their head. For a man who once stopped traffic with a stare, becoming totally invisible is a fate worse than death. The damp mold creeping up his apartment walls does not break him. The rusty engine that stalls every morning does not either. It is the deafening silence from the heavy hitters who used to kiss the pavement he walked on. Men who would snap their own necks to answer his call now send his number straight to voicemail without a second thought. Here is a heavy truth we all have to face. Respect purchased with fear vanishes the second your power dries up. People only ever bow to the heavy crown, never to the man wearing it. He is just another ghost on the concrete. Let us sit with this heavy contrast for a moment. In his golden era, grown men whispered his name in dark corners. Valets would trip over their own feet to open his door. He carved through this city like a shark. Tonight, strangers ram their shoulders into him on the frozen sidewalk and never say excuse me. He is just another broken soul staring through dirty glass at a $12 bottle of whiskey. And here is the tragic punchline. He only has $14 left to his name, waiting on a meager construction check to clear next Friday. The universe has a savage way of balancing the scales. If you spend your life treating people like dirt under your shoes, the world will eventually make sure you know exactly what it feels like to be crushed. Look closely at his hands when he grabs that buzzing phone. They are cracked and covered in thick calluses from swinging a hammer. He is breaking his back for bosses who do not know his name, once made the underworld hold its breath. When the screen lights up, you can see the hesitation in his eyes. The loyal soldiers he bought, they are rotting in federal prison or scattered across the border. Ronan took the coward's way out. He talked to the feds. Sure, it kept him out of a cage, but it branded him with the heaviest curse a man can carry. He is a snitch. It proves a bitter, absolute truth. When you sell out everyone around you to save your own skin, you might survive the storm. But you will spend the rest of your days entirely alone, constantly looking over your shoulder. He pulls out the phone, and the caller ID hits him harder than a bullet. It reads, "Mama." His chest tightens up, and honestly, so does ours. Her voice sounds fragile on the line, years older than it did 2 weeks ago. Grief is chewing her up, and you hear the struggle in every breath. She asks if he is coming over. He says yes, but you and I both know he planned to disappear, not because he forgot, but because facing the woman who gave him life, bearing the weight of her quiet disappointment, is a torture far worse than anything his enemies could do. She coughs, but swears she is fine. Here is the heavy lesson we all have to swallow. You can build a wall of lies to fool the entire world, but you can never hide your failures from a mother's watchful eyes. He leans against a frozen brick wall, squeezing his eyes shut as the winter snow begins to fall, through the crackle of a cheap burner phone. His mother gives strict orders for Christmas Eve dinner. She demands bread the expensive kind from that little bakery on Mercer Street. In that cold silence, a fractured smile breaks through his absolute misery. It is that undeniable motherly tone, blending harsh commands with a fierce, stubborn love. She used that exact voice when he was a boy with scraped knees, and she uses it now that he is a disgraced federal informant. It leaves us with a quiet truth to hold on to, no matter how far you fall in this life. Real family does not care about your past. They just expect you to show up, pulling up a chair at the table. Let us pause and look at this together. You and I know the type, the hardened criminal, the untouchable guy, yet here he is, getting schooled by his mother. She tells him to shave, stripping away his street glory to remind him he is still her boy. The line clicks dead. Ronan stands alone. There are no sirens or explosions, just a broken man facing the miserable reality of a freezing night. He shoves stiff hands into his pockets, ice melting down his collar, and trudges toward a bakery like an ordinary guy. He survived a ruthless underworld, only to be humbled by a snowy errand. It is a gentle reminder for all of us tuning in tonight. No matter how thick the armor you wear, you can never outgrow the people who loved you before you put it on. By the time he drags his boots to that bakery window, his lungs are screaming from the chill. He is stuck outside in the bitter dark, staring through frosted glass at a glowing room full of ordinary people. They sit drinking coffee, entirely safe from the violent life he built. Even through the cold, you can almost sense the cinnamon, the feeling of a quiet existence he ignored until his loud world collapsed. Suddenly, a little girl in a bright red coat bumps into his knees, holding a frosted cookie bigger than her head. She giggles, completely unafraid of the imposing man. It is one of those fleeting moments that teaches us a quiet truth. Innocence still breathes and laughs right in front of us, even on the nights we feel absolutely certain we have lost our own. The little girl mumbles an apology and bolts back to her mother. The mom gives Ronan an exhausted scan, then simply looks away. The once terrifying enforcer is officially invisible to a tired civilian. At the counter, a teenage cashier in a messy apron flashes a polite smile and calls him sir. Not boss, not a feared street name, just sir. Ronan asks for the $7 loaf his mother wanted, feeling the strange shock of a normal life. As the register clicks, his shoulders finally drop. He lets his heavy guard down, his dark eyes wandering across the bakery. It leaves us with a heavy realization about walking away from the dark. Sometimes the hardest mountain to climb is learning how to be a nobody again, quietly blending into the soft background of a peaceful room. Then the universe pulls the floor from under his boots. He turns and his blood turns to ice. Sitting by the frosted window is Celeste. She is not the glamorous fantasy he obsessively clung to, and eventually shattered. She is wearing a faded green sweater, laughing an easy laugh. Across from her, a man gently stirs sugar into her mug. He reaches out and lightly grazes her hand. It is not a desperate grab, it is a quiet, everyday gesture of devotion, built on months of learning how to make someone feel safe. True love is never about caging a heart. It is about building a quiet sanctuary together. Ronan just stands there, staring at the warmth he threw away. Finally understanding he missed the entire point of what it means to truly love someone. Ronan feels his throat tighten, his boots cemented to the floor, and then she looks up. You and I can practically watch the color drain from her face. For one agonizing second, the earth stops spinning. Outside, the snow drifts lazily. Inside, a gentle song plays while a child laughs. The sickening contrast makes the air feel impossibly heavy. Celeste stands, offers her confused partner a fragile excuse, and slowly closes the distance. Ronan is gripping the counter until his knuckles ache. She offers a careful, trembling hello. She tries to tell him he looks good, but the words turn to ash. It is a harsh reality we all face. We spend years practicing what we will say to the ghosts of our past, only to find our lungs entirely empty when they finally step into the light. He knows exactly what a wreck he has become. The man lost 20 pounds, hasn't touched a razor in days, and is drowning inside a coat that used to fit his frame. When he awkwardly mumbles a compliment, she almost laughs, but the sound dies in her throat. She just looks at him, her eyes softening, and asks if he is okay. He is completely stunned. Not because he thinks she still loves him, he knows he burned that bridge, but because her soul is relentlessly kind. He used to be the nightmare in her story, yet she still has the grace to check on him. He lies, saying he is fine, while she glances at his groceries. Sometimes the absolute heaviest burden you can ever carry is looking at the person you broke, and realizing they ended up being a much better human than you will ever be. They force some hollow small talk about his mother making soup, and then a heavy, suffocating silence crashes down between them. It isn't an angry silence, it is that pathetic, empty quiet that falls when an illusion finally burns away, leaving two strangers staring at the messy truth. Celeste is still gorgeous, but Ronan cannot even see her beauty anymore. His brain entirely painted over her face with his own guilt. Whenever he looks at her, all he sees is the memory of her sobbing on his floor, or the sheer terror in her eyes when he blocked the door so she couldn't leave. You can never force someone to love you through control. Once the fear finally fades away, the only thing left behind is a permanent, haunting ghost of the pain you caused. Stick with me here, because this is where the dynamic really shifts. We have a man who used to fire off unhinged texts at 3 a.m, earning a restraining order before everything collapsed now. Celeste is the one saying she is sorry, she shouldn't apologize, and thankfully, Ronan knows it. He looks right at her and quietly says, "No, you were never the problem." Her face crumbles from the sheer exhaustion of their history. Meanwhile, the new guy by the window just watches. He isn't puffing his chest out, he is genuinely concerned. Ronan is finally seeing what a healthy relationship looks like, and he is entirely locked out of it. The harshest punishment in life is finally gaining self-awareness when it is simply too late to fix the things you shattered. It is that rare kind of concern that only comes from actually caring, not from a twisted desire to own someone. Celeste follows Ronan's gaze, her expression going soft. "That is Daniel," she says. "He owns the bakery. Let's appreciate the cruel irony." Of course, she ended up with a gentle guy who bakes bread and doesn't scream about fake betrayals in the middle of the night. Ronan asks if the baker is good to her. She says yes, he says good. Then comes the kill shot. Celeste drops her voice and says, "She was right about you." She doesn't even need to say the name Iris. The ghost of Iris is suddenly standing right there with them. Ronan stares down at the bread in his hands, completely defeated, and whispers that he knows, eventually, every single one of us has to stand in the mirror and face the monsters we used to be. Look closely at the snow melting on his expensive coat, leaving heavy dark patches across his shoulders. It is a perfect visual metaphor for his regret. He admits his realization is a little late. Celeste looks at him, and her eyes fill with this agonizingly soft emotion. It is almost pity, but more like a quiet mourning. She tells him that late is still better than never. He breathes out a heavy sigh and wishes her a Merry Christmas. She says it back and walks to Daniel's table. Watch them interact. Daniel asks a quiet question. She shakes her head and lightly touches his shoulder. They built a life where they don't need to panic when an old ghost walks in. True love is always quiet and deeply secure, while a toxic, broken love is forever shouting just to be heard. Ronan grabs the bread and walks out into the night without a single backward glance. Outside, the universe seems to be turning up the volume. The snow falls much harder now, huge flakes covering the sidewalk and softening the harsh glow of the street lamps. He gets into his car and just sits in the freezing driver's seat, staring into the void. His hands violently shake. He grips the steering wheel until his knuckles turn bone white, and the tremors finally stop. He drives all the way to Westbrook. By the time he pulls up to his mother's house, he is covered in snow, his face numb. His mother, Anna, pulls open the front door before he even lifts a hand to knock. No matter how much damage you do in this world, a mother always seems to know the exact moment her child is broken. He stammers out a weak question about how she knew he was there, and she replies she saw his car pulling him inside. The house hits him with the scent of garlic, rosemary, and hot soup. It is the exact smell of every Christmas Eve from his youth, the last piece of home he has left. She takes his icy coat, muttering that he looks terrible. He offers a sarcastic Merry Christmas. Then she does something that hits you right in the chest. She reaches out and touches his cheek, treating this grown, destructive man like fragile glass. He nearly shatters from that one drop of genuine affection. She tells him he is too thin, demanding to know if he eats. He dodges the question. Even in our darkest moments of guilt, a single drop of unconditional care can be the only thing keeping us alive. He follows her into the kitchen, and the room looks so much smaller to him now, the brutal truth. He spent his life measuring things by price tags instead of emotional value. They cook in silence. Anna moves around like a master, seasoning without measuring a thing. Ronan is stuck chopping vegetables at the counter, carrots, celery, then onions, making his eyes water. Right in the middle of slicing a carrot, Anna casually drops a nuclear bomb. She quietly says, "I saw her." The sharp knife freezes in his hand. He snaps his head up, his heart skipping a beat, and asks when 2 months ago. She replies. The air in that tiny room is suddenly suffocating. Life has a funny way of digging up our past the very second we think we have finally managed to bury it. Anna stands at the stove with her back to him, slowly stirring that soup. She refuses to turn around. Ronan's pulse skyrockets and his hands go ice cold. He asks if Iris actually came to the house. October, his mother confirms. He is desperate, asking what she wanted. Anna glances over her shoulder, her face a stone wall, leaving zero room for debate. She says Iris just wanted to make sure she was okay. The irony is razor sharp. Ronan's knife slips. He sets it down before he cuts his hand. Anna calmly twists the emotional knife further, mentioning Iris brought groceries and yellow flowers, remembering they were her favorite. He is paralyzed. You can destroy a romance, but you can never erase the quiet grace a genuinely good person leaves behind in your world. Ronan practically begs to know what Iris said. Anna replies she just asked if she needed anything, adding sharply, "What else should she have said?" He looks away in shame. His mother keeps stirring that soup like a metronome, acting as if Iris hasn't just shattered 3 years of silence. Then Anna delivers the fatal blow. She says Iris was kinder than he ever deserved, but here is the part that breaks him. Anna admits Iris never even asked about him, not once. That fact hits harder than a physical blow. He finds out Iris begged to keep the visit a secret, and asks why she is telling him now. Anna's answer is simple: it is Christmas Eve. She is exhausted, and she refuses to carry secrets to protect his ego. The truth always demands the light, no matter how much it hurts to hear. You and I need to unpack the brilliance of this moment together. He swallows hard, his hands trembling. He asks the ultimate toxic ex question: did she look happy? Anna pauses to think. She turns off the stove, sets down the spoon, and faces her son completely. She finally says no, not happy. Ronan's chest instantly tightens with a pathetic sliver of hope. But then Anna drops the hammer. She looks him in the eye and says peaceful. That single word is an emotional death sentence, and he knows it. If she was happy, it meant she was still reacting to a world where his existence mattered. But peaceful. Peaceful means she entirely deleted him from her nervous system. Finding true peace means you finally stopped fighting the ghost of the one who broke you, and simply walked away. There is no hate left, no obsession, no unfinished business, zero. He is a closed chapter for a woman who once shared his darkest secrets, desperate. He asks if she brought him up at all. Anna says no. That word hits him like a right hook. Anna places a hand on his shoulder, telling him it is a good thing because it means she is healed. Then Ronan's true, ugly nature slips out. He snaps. I do not want her to be healed. The selfish entitlement is stunning. Anna's face turns to stone. She tells him too bad. You do not get to want things from her anymore. He flinches as she pulls her hand away. She reminds him he had a brilliant woman, and instead of cherishing her, he actively tried to crush her. True love builds a partner up. It never tears them down just to keep them trapped. Anna drops the final, heavy truth into the quiet kitchen. When Iris refused to bend, Ronan shattered himself trying to break her. He begs, swearing up and down that he truly loved her. But Anna delivers a brutal maternal reality check. I am your mother, she says. Loving you is my job, but I will not pretend I do not understand why she ran. The silence that follows is suffocating. Ronan turns away, his grip on the kitchen knife shaking violently. Dinner becomes a grueling marathon of soup and bread, with Sinatra singing ghosts into the room. Eventually, the wine pulls Anna into a heavy sleep. Ronan gently drapes a blanket over her. He steps to the window, staring at the frozen street. Fully aware he is hollowed out by his own actions, sometimes, the most painful wounds are the ones we inflict on ourselves. A peaceful woman. That phrase keeps ringing in his ears. Iris did not become cruel or spiteful. She was not waiting for him to come crawling back. She was simply peaceful. To a man like Ronan, that is the ultimate punishment. Her peace means she did the one thing he could never manage. She let go. Not with screaming anger, but with the quiet finality of someone shutting a door forever. He presses his forehead against the freezing glass, his reflection staring back like a ghost. Around midnight, Anna stirs awake and points to the couch, demanding he stay. He argues about the snow, but she tells him to sit down and stop being a fool. Defeated, he sinks into the cushions. She just stares at him, letting the heavy silence speak. We eventually learn that true peace is something you can never force. Anna's eyes hold that terrifying clarity she had when he was a kid, able to read his soul just by looking at his face. You loved her, she says quietly. The room goes dead silent. Ronan instantly denies it, the classic reflex of a guilty man. Anna just scoffs. She mutters how men like him always turn love into ownership until the beautiful thing dies right in their hands. Ronan cannot even look at her. He stares at the scratched hardwood floor his father installed 30 years ago, back when he believed his parents were immortal. Then Anna delivers the final crushing diagnosis. She tells him that Iris terrified him. It is a harsh fact, not a question. Instead of stepping up to become worthy of her, you tried to make her smaller. True strength is lifting someone up, never tearing them down. Pause the tape right here with me for a second. Look at Ronan's mother, staring into her wine glass like it holds all the answers. She knows the truth, and he knows it too. She drops that heavy reality check, and it hits the room like a physical weight, and Ronan. He is just staring out that dark window, watching the thick snow bury the world, making the broken things look perfectly whole again. You and I know exactly what is playing in his head tonight. He is picturing Iris, sweet, genuine Iris, walking up those front steps with groceries and fresh flowers for his mom, not working an angle, not playing some exhausting long game. She just did it because she was kind. Sometimes the absolute hardest thing to look at is pure goodness, especially when you know you are the one who ruined it forever. Here is the dark irony that rips your heart out. Ronan looked at the most extraordinary woman he had ever met, saw her gentle kindness, and honestly believed she was weak. He thought she was something he could manage. He wanted her smaller, kept in a neat little box just for him. When she naturally refused to shrink, he punished her for it. The memory slams into him right now. 3 years ago, the night she walked out. He came home angry, his business circling the drain, the feds breathing down his neck, and he needed a punching bag. She was sitting in bed, quietly reading a book, doing absolutely nothing wrong, and he exploded. He unleashed all his terror and failure onto the only person who actually had his back. It is a bitter pill to swallow, but we so often destroy the very hands that hold us together. Let us look at this piece by piece, shall we? He cannot remember the exact poison he spat at her, just that it was designed to cut deep. He called her cold and selfish. She quietly closed her book, ignored his tantrums, and calmly said she was done, instead of begging for forgiveness. He doubled down. He lost his mind, screaming about the apartment, the car, the jewelry he bought her. As if throwing money at someone means you own their soul. She packed a bag while he followed her around like a rabid dog, trying to force her to stay through sheer volume. Here is the part that will haunt him forever. When she reached the door, she did not look angry. She looked at him with pure pity. She hoped he would figure it out, and then she vanished. We quickly learn that money buys a lot of things, but it can never buy a spine. This is where the delusion truly sets in. He stood in that doorway watching the elevator swallow her up, fully convinced she would come crawling back. Because they always come back, right? Except Iris was not playing a game. 6 months later, his criminal empire collapsed when the indictments dropped. Soon after, he was singing to the feds just to save his own skin. 3 years later, her absence is still eating him alive. His mother softly tells him to sleep, moving around that tired kitchen like a ghost who has washed those same dishes 10,000 times. She sees right through him. She tells him to lie down and pretend to sleep, but to stop staring out that freezing window. She knows he is waiting for a ghost. The bitterest truth in life is realizing the rescue boat left years ago, and you are the one who sank it. He wants to fight back, but you know what? His mother is absolutely right. She always is, so he surrenders, lying back on that lumpy old couch. Anna tosses a second heavy blanket over him, kills the lights, and vanishes into her bedroom, leaving him alone in the dark. He stares up at the ceiling while the steady snow buries the city outside. Somewhere out there, Iris is living a beautiful, peaceful life that he has no right to be part of anymore. A quiet life she built from the wreckage he carelessly left behind. Let us be honest here. He deserves every single second of this crushing silence. He held a living miracle in his hands and he squeezed until it broke. Not out of malice, but out of absolute, pathetic fear. Truly loving someone, without trying to control them, means you have to step up and finally be a better man. He was not willing to do the hard work it takes to genuinely change. The wall clock keeps ticking away in the dark. Midnight quietly slips past, and just like that, it is Christmas morning. Ronan lies wide awake on his mother's couch, the cold reality finally sinking into his bones. He understands exactly what he threw away, and worse, why he deserved to lose her. Meanwhile, the woman he shattered has glued herself back together into someone who no longer needs his chaos. When the gray dawn finally creeps in, Ronan wakes up with a twisted neck and a mouth that tastes like rusty copper. For a split second, he does not even know where he is. Then his eyes lock onto that familiar water stain on his mother's ceiling. It looks just like a closed fist. The memory of last night hits him like a freight train. You can never outrun the broken things you refuse to fix. Stick with me here, because this is where the desperation really kicks in. He slowly sits up, every stiff muscle in his back screaming in protest. The house is completely silent, way too silent. He checks his phone, barely packs in the morning. His mom will be out cold for a while. He drags himself to the tiny bathroom, and the guy looking back in the mirror is a total wreck. bloodshot eyes, a rough beard, and that pale scar from a broken bottle during his lockup days. It is a permanent map of how far he has fallen. He splashes freezing water on his face, trying to wake up from a nightmare that is his life then, in a moment of pure weakness. He does something he hasn't dared to do in months. He pulls out his phone and types her name into the search bar. Sometimes, the invisible scars on the inside are the ones that truly dictate our every move. His heavy thumb hovers over the enter button. Every survival instinct screams at him not to do it, but he presses it anyway. The search results drag on his mother's agonizingly slow connection, and then absolutely nothing. No recent updates, no social profiles. Not a single news mention in the past 2 years. She has completely vanished from the digital world. We know she is still alive in this city because his mother ran into her, but Iris deliberately erased her footprint. She made sure he could never check up on her again. He keeps scrolling, desperate for a single crumb, until he unearths an old photo from a charity gala 4 years ago, back when he was a heavy hitter in this town, and back when she still belonged to him. It is truly terrifying how easily someone can erase you from their universe when you finally push them too far. Look closely at this photograph with me tonight. She is wearing a stunning black dress, smiling so brightly at someone just out of frame. Ronan is standing right beside her, but his eyes are anchored somewhere else entirely. He is physically present, but his mind is drifting miles away. Even frozen in time, you can feel the massive emotional distance stretching between them. He stares at that glowing screen until it goes pitch black, and then clears his search history. 20 minutes later, his mother finds him in the dim kitchen, gripping a mug of cheap instant coffee that went ice cold hours ago. She studies his hollow face and simply tells him he looks terrible. It is a hard truth we all must face. We can wipe a digital screen clean, but we can never truly erase the heavy stain of our own guilt. She brushes right past his silent frame to raid the refrigerator for eggs, butter, and stale bread. It is Christmas morning, and she refuses to let her broken son walk out into the cold on an empty stomach. They sit at the faded wooden table and eat their scrambled eggs in a suffocating silence. Right in the middle of a bite, she drops the hammer, asking him point blank what he is going to do about Iris. He tries to play dumb, but Anna demands that he go look for her. Ronan lowers his fork, his voice cracking as he insists she does not want to be found. His mother mocks his sudden burst of maturity, but Ronan is dead serious. It is a tragic flaw in human nature, one we see far too often. We only start respecting the boundaries of the people we love after we have already trampled them into dust and lost everything in the process. Anna leans back, staring right through his empty soul. She hits him with a devastating truth. She tells him his problem is thinking love is a shiny prize you earn, or a broken machine you can fix with a wrench. But that is not how the heart works. You just love someone, and if they do not return it, you walk away. The brutal irony is that Iris actually did love him deeply, and he took a wrecking ball to her devotion. Now his mother demands his next move. Ronan stares blankly at his plate and murmurs that he will do absolutely nothing. Anna stands up, calls him a liar to his face, and gathers the dishes. You and I both know she is completely right about him. A man who deliberately burns down his own home never just sits quietly in the freezing rain, without desperately trying to crawl back into the warm ashes. He throws on his winter coat and leaves a soft kiss on his mother's cheek. She tells him to drive safe, but drops one final warning as he grabs the door. She tells him to leave Iris alone. He does not offer a single word in return. He steps into the brutal morning air, digs his frozen car out of the snow, and starts the lonely 40-minute drive home. The roads are empty. The rest of the world is safely inside, pretending their lives are perfectly fine. He pulls into the alley behind his apartment, leaves the engine running, and sits there letting the heater blast his numb face. Suddenly, his phone violently buzzes. A text from an unknown number flashes on the screen. It simply says, "Merry Christmas, you piece of garbage." Life is a brutal way of teaching us humility. We learn very quickly that the angry ghosts of our past always have the most impeccable timing. Another message flashes on the screen. It is Marcus. Think about the agonizing irony here. Marcus Chen was his loyal business partner, the man who took the fall and went to a concrete cell while Ronan cut a cozy deal with the feds. This is the same guy who texted him 3 years ago, wishing Ronan a slow, painful death. Ronan nervously asks how he got the private number. Marcus replies that he still has connections, just dropping by to remind Ronan that he will always be a rat. Ronan clenches his jaw, typing back that he simply did what he had to do to survive. He claims they all had a choice between a cage and cooperation, but Marcus delivers the final blow. He types back that there is never a right choice when you sell out your own blood. We might dodge a harsh prison sentence, but we can never outrun the terrible, guilty reflection waiting for us in the mirror. Look at Ronan right here. He sits in his freezing car, staring at a text message like it is a live grenade. The message says Marcus has been out of prison for 3 months now. Marcus is not some ruthless hitman. He is just an accountant, a guy who gets nervous when the internet drops. But Ronan feels his stomach hit the icy floorboards. Why? Because Marcus personally knows the violent shadows who actually do the hitting. The text chillingly reminds him that people still talk. Ronan types back that he does not care, desperately playing the tough guy, but you and I know it is a complete lie. He drags his heavy body out of the car and heads up to his empty apartment, carrying the suffocating weight of a past he cannot outrun. It is a harsh reality of our actions. Nobody ever truly walks away from the deep damage they cause. We just end up taking a much longer, more painful road to the exact same graveyard. Listen to the rain tonight, friends. You really have to feel the ache in this man's chest. He drags himself into an apartment thick with the scent of old takeout and heavy regrets. Instead of cleaning up, he punishes himself. He stares at a photograph of Iris. She is smiling, but now he finally sees the tension in her tired eyes, the invisible chains he wrapped around her. He broke her, totally blind to the damage he was doing. Here is a simple truth for us all sometimes. You are the villain in the very love story you thought you were building, just as that agonizing guilt pulls him under. The phone screams in the dark, an unknown number. A cold, sharp voice cuts the silence. Detective Sarah Brennan, Chicago Police Department. And just like that, reality kicks the door down. Picture the blood draining from Ronan's face in the pale moonlight. The detective does not sugarcoat a thing. Marcus Chen is dead, found full of holes in some frozen alley off Cicero Avenue at 5 a.m. Think about the bitter irony. Marcus, a soft accountant who just played the tough guy in text messages, gets permanently erased before sunrise. The room starts spinning fast. The detective presses hard, asking when they last spoke. Panic takes the wheel, and Ronan spits out a clumsy lie about a friendly holiday greeting. She sees right through his pathetic act, ordering him down to the station to discuss their complicated history. The hard lesson here. A single panicked lie will build a cold iron cage you can never escape. The detective has absolutely zero sympathy in her voice. Ronan tries to stall, offering to come in tomorrow when the sun is up. She shuts him down completely. It is Christmas, she says, and a man is dead in the snow. She hangs up, leaving him holding a useless piece of plastic. This is when the suffocating panic finally sets in. Marcus is dead, and the last person he texted was Ronan. Let us do the math together, friends. The filthy walls of his apartment start closing in, crushing his ribs. Was it the old crime family tying up loose ends? Did Marcus say the wrong thing to the wrong ghost? You can try to walk away from your dark past, but eventually it always comes back to collect its debts. The old life is banging on his door. So how does a man react when his world collapses? He shatters. Ronan grabs his heavy coat and practically runs from the apartment, driven by blind panic down the freezing streets of Chicago. He wanders aimlessly until he washes up at a miserable dive bar on Western Avenue. The kind of gloomy shelter that opens early on Christmas for broken souls with nowhere else to be. He orders the cheapest whiskey, throwing it back like it is water, and demands another. It breaks your heart to watch. He is drowning himself in liquor to silence the screaming truth in his head. Whatever monster dragged Marcus into the dark is already hunting him next. We all have ways to hide from our fears, but numbing the pain never actually stops the bleeding. I want you to ask yourself honestly, if a blocked number texted you right after a murder, would you walk into the dark? Any sane person would run. But Ronan is too desperate for answers. He is sitting in that sad tavern when his screen lights up. Meet me at Garfield Park, the message reads. When he asks why he should trust a ghost, the reply turns his blood to ice. Because if you do not come, you are next. It is the most obvious, dangerous trap a man could ever step into. Yet 40 minutes later there he stands by a frozen pond in a deserted park. He is willing to take a bullet in the snow just to uncover a single shred of truth. It is a tragic reminder for us all. When a man has nothing left to live for, he stops being afraid of the things that can kill him. The tension hanging in that freezing air is thick enough to cut. Nobody walks through Garfield Park on a gray Christmas morning. Ronan stands there shivering, jumping at shadows until a figure separates from the dead trees. A tall woman hidden inside a black coat and a heavy winter scarf. She steps right up to him, and when she pulls the wool down, his heart skips a beat. She has the exact same haunting eyes as Iris. For one agonizing second, he thinks his lost love has returned from the grave. Then she speaks. She is Lucia Reeves, Iris' younger sister. His mind completely shatters. He never even knew she had a sister. The harshest lesson in life is realizing that the people we hold closest to our hearts are often the ones hiding the deepest secrets. Lucia finally drops the heavy truth. They are half-sisters, which perfectly explains why Ronan was stumbling in the dark all this time. But the real gut punch is why she is here. Despite the wreckage Ronan made of Iris's heart, she cannot bear to see him in a body bag. And here is where the story twists the knife. Marcus was not taken out by the mob. He was flatlined by a man named Adrian Hale. When Ronan hears that name, his soul shatters. Adrian is the guy Iris ran to. Her new husband. Why would the new husband kill Marcus? Because Marcus was gearing up to put Ronan in the ground. So Adrian pulled the trigger first. The man who took his girl is now his violent guardian angel. It is a harsh truth. Sometimes the hands that save us belong to the very demons we hate most. Ronan struggles to piece this nightmare together. Why would Adrian care if he breathes or bleeds? Lucia spells it out with brutal honesty. Adrian does not care about Ronan at all, but he is completely consumed by Iris. Whatever Iris wants, Adrian executes, literally. Ronan prays Iris sent her to warn him, but she did not. Lucia is here off the books because Adrian is devolving into a messy serial killer. Anyone who glances in Ronan's direction ends up on a cold slab. Jimmy Russo, Teresa Vance, and Mitchell, the federal prosecutor. 3 dead in 6 months and Marcus makes 4. Ronan feels his knees give out. His invisible shield is built out of fresh corpses. It is a dark reminder that obsession wearing the mask of protection is nothing but a deadly cage. The prosecutor was set up to look like a natural heart attack. Ice-cold work. You and I can imagine the weight of this dropping on Ronan. He has to sit down on a freezing bench as his reality cracks open. Why is this happening? Because Adrian scrubs out problems before they even breathe. And thanks to the lingering feelings Iris carries. Ronan is the problem that must be kept breathing. I do not need protection, he argues, playing the tough guy. But Lucia shuts that down. He does not get a vote. Iris might despise him for the hell he put her through. But she cannot stomach his murder. It is the ultimate toxic paradox. He wants to call her, but he is trapped in a cage built by his replacement. The hardest life lessons force us to sit quietly with the unfixable messes we made. Here is the bitterest pill Ronan has to choke down. He assumes Iris is pulling the strings, but Lucia shatters that illusion. Iris is completely clueless. Adrian keeps her hands clean while he slaughters people in the dark. Then Lucia drops the true nightmare. Iris has a daughter with Adrian, a 2-year-old girl. You can hear the glass breaking in Ronan's chest. He does the miserable math. She got pregnant barely a year after she walked out. That means she was slipping away, building a new world while Ronan thought they were fine. His fragile ego flares up. He demands to see her, claiming he needs to warn her about her killer husband, but it is way too late. The most painful truth about heartbreak is finally realizing you are no longer the hero in someone else's story. Lucia tears his hero complex apart. If he warns Iris, it will only detonate her new family. Do you think she is going to thank you for destroying her life a second time? She asks. He weakly protests, swearing he is not trying to ruin anything. But that is the fatal kicker. He does not have to try. As Lucia puts it, he is pure poison. Everything he touches turns to rot, deep down. Ronan knows she is absolutely right. She hands him a heavy ultimatum: drive south to the ocean and erase his identity. If he stays, Adrian will decide he is a liability and end him. Ronan whines that he has done nothing wrong. But in this sick game, his mere existence is a crime. It reminds us all that sometimes the greatest act of love is simply having the grace to walk away. Stick with me here, because this is where the psychology gets dark. As long as Iris thinks about Ronan, Adrian views him as a mortal enemy. Ronan calls it insanity. Lucia calls it love, the kind of scorched earth love that burns the forest down to keep one tree safe. She gives him 24 hours to vanish as she turns away. Ronan's bruised ego needs to know one last thing. Is she happy? He begs. Lucia stops. She could have lied, but she delivers a devastating truth. Iris is not happy, she is merely surviving. Adrian provides an impenetrable fortress. But the one thing he can never be is Ronan. It is a quiet tragedy we all face in life sometimes. We trade the chaotic spark we actually desire for the absolute safety we desperately need. It boils down to a fundamental human flaw. Sometimes we crave the very thing guaranteed to destroy us. Ronan asks if Adrian is good to her, and the answer is bone-chilling. Adrian does not lay a hand on her, but he is just as obsessed as Ronan was. Only he built a prettier, invisible cage. Lucia leaves him with that 24-hour warning and vanishes. Picture Ronan sitting alone in this desolate park as the winter sun drops behind the Chicago skyline. His reality has violently flipped. Adrian is not killing people to protect Ronan. He is stacking bodies solely to spare Iris from the emotional inconvenience of attending his funeral. Realizing you only get to keep breathing because the woman you broke pities you, that is a cold truth, and a fate far worse than a bullet. Pause the tape right here. Just sit with this for a second. After 3 years of dead silence, Ronan learns his ex cares about him so deeply that her new husband is dropping bodies just to keep her from feeling grief. How do you even begin to process a truth like that? Ronan certainly cannot. He just starts walking like a ghost through the frost until his phone buzzes. It is Detective Brennan, and she is not overflowing with festive cheer. You missed your appointment, she barks. He begs for a rain check, but she threatens a warrant for a homicide investigation, so he drags his heavy feet down to District 12. Even on Christmas, the bad guys are working overtime. Life has a brutal way of making sure the dark ghosts of your past never, ever take a holiday. Brennan looks younger than she sounded, maybe pushing 40, with eyes that could cut glass and no wedding ring. She drags him into a claustrophobic interrogation room. You know the kind, a tiny table, 2 hard chairs, and a glaring 2-way mirror. She whips out a notepad and goes straight for the throat. Asking about Marcus Chen, Ronan plays it cool, claiming they were partners in real estate. Brennan smirks, calling that a creative name for laundering cash. She grills him about the text message. Marcus called him a rat for snitching, right before taking a bullet. Snitching was supposed to buy Ronan a clean slate, but you and I both know the unwritten rule. The dirt you bury deep in your past will always find a way to muddy up your shiny new future. Ronan tries to defend the dead man. Insisting Marcus was never violent, Brennan hits back with pure sarcasm. Noting that taking 6 bullets to the chest is a pretty violent way to clock out, she demands his alibi. Ronan swears he was asleep at his mother's house in Westbrook. No guns, no history of violence. Then she drops the million-dollar question. Who wanted Marcus dead? Look closely at Ronan's face here. He knows the answer is Adrian Hale. The name is burning on his tongue, but he chokes. He lies, saying half the city wanted Marcus gone. Why lie? Because telling the truth would drag the only woman he ever loved into the crossfire. We often dig our own graves, just to keep the ones we love standing safely in the sunlight. Brennan leans back in her chair, staring a hole straight through him. She calls his bluff immediately. She knows he is feeding her a carefully crafted story. She tells him not to leave town, letting him sweat before turning him loose. But the second Ronan steps back out into the freezing afternoon air, his phone buzzes, a blocked number. The voice on the other end makes his blood run completely ice cold. It is Adrian. He already knows Ronan just spoke to the cops how. Because monsters like him make it their full-time job to know everything. Ronan begs to be left alone, swearing he is not a threat. But Adrian hits him with a brutal truth. Ronan is a threat to her peace of mind, and if you truly love someone, their inner peace is the one thing you will gladly kill to protect. Adrian's voice drips with a terrifying calm as he exposes Ronan's deepest flaw. He says Ronan just wants closure, that he is desperate for Iris to say everything is forgiven. But you and I know some sins are simply unforgivable. Adrian makes a bone-chilling vow. If Ronan even looks in her direction, Adrian will put him in the ground, the real tragedy. Adrian genuinely believes he is the good guy. He says he will gladly torch the city to ash to keep her safe. When Ronan points out that Adrian murdered 4 people, Adrian calmly corrects him. 5. He admits to slaughtering the private eye Ronan hired 2 years back. Love can heal us, sure, but the harsh lesson here is that unchecked. Obsessive love creates the absolute worst kind of monsters. It is a heavy pill to swallow. Ronan freezes on the icy pavement, his mind entirely short-circuiting. 2 years ago, right after his plea deal, he paid a guy to track Iris, just to ensure she survived his fallout. When the shadow vanished, Ronan assumed he took the cash and ran, but no. Adrian slaughtered the man simply for photographing her house. This was not about security. It was a brutal message. You do not get to play the caring ex when you are the hurricane that ruined her. Ronan's voice cracks as he pleads that he only wanted to know she was safe. Adrian twists the blade one last time. She is more than okay. And finally safe from the disaster that is Ronan. The life lesson here is simple. You cannot burn someone's life to the ground and then expect a thank you for checking if they are warm. Ronan practically chokes on the air as he asks the ultimate question. Does Iris know the man she married is a cold-blooded killer? Adrian does not even hesitate, no, and she never will. He coldly boasts that his only job is solving problems permanently, then the line goes dead. You and I need to look at this piece by piece, because this is the ultimate checkmate. If Ronan stays in town, he catches a bullet. If he runs to Iris, he catches a bullet. Go to the cops. They all get buried. There is no magical escape hatch here, sometimes in life. Every choice you have left is just a different flavor of poison, completely hollowed out. Ronan lets his numb feet drag him forward on autopilot. Minutes later, he blinks through the snow, standing in front of a building he swore he would never see again. Look closely at this scene. Ronan stands on the frozen sidewalk, staring at the glass tower where his company used to rule the city. He used to stand in that top-floor office, looking down like an absolute god. Tonight, he cannot even get past the front desk. His phone vibrates in his freezing palm. It is his mother, begging him to come back and stay just one more night. He types back that he has things to do, shutting her out to face the dark alone. The truth is bitter, but here is a simple life lesson. The universe does not care about the grand empire you used to own. It only cares about the man you are right now. Standing alone in the freezing cold, when all of your former power has been entirely stripped away. Another message lights up his cracked screen. His mother begs him not to do anything stupid. He types back a promise that he will not. Just another hollow lie added to the pile. By the time he finishes the long walk back to his apartment, his fingers are numb and his mind is locked. He is done hiding. He is going to see Iris one last time, not to beg for forgiveness, but to tell her the terrifying truth about Adrian. Even if that truth burns both of them to ash. He shoves a few shirts and his $3,000 stash into a duffel bag. It is truly tragic to witness. The simple life lesson here is unavoidable. The lies we constantly tell to protect the people we love are usually the exact same lies that end up destroying everyone in the bitter end. He snatches his keys, but his phone vibrates again, an unknown number. A deep, gravelly voice on the other end calls him Mr. Vex. It is Thomas Reeves, the father of Iris. Ronan grips the phone so hard his knuckles ache. Thomas explains that Lucia gave him the number. Thinking Ronan might need a lifeline, Ronan tries to play the tough guy, claiming he needs nothing, but Thomas drops a heavy truth. Adrian is a violently dangerous man, and a direct threat to Iris. Ronan snaps, demanding her father get her out, but Thomas sighs. She refuses to leave, because Adrian saved her life 3 years ago, right after Ronan utterly destroyed it. The simple life lesson here. You can never fix a shattered heart by handing it over to a dangerous monster, no matter how much glue that monster happens to be holding. I want you to pause and sit with this moment. Ronan practically chokes, demanding to know what happened. Thomas lowers his voice to reveal the darkest secret. 2 months after leaving Ronan, Iris tried to end her pain with a bottle of pills. Adrian was the one who found her just in time. The world stopped spinning for Ronan. She is tied to Adrian by a twisted, suffocating web of gratitude. Ronan cannot even draw breath as Thomas twists the blade deeper. You broke her, Thomas whispers, and Adrian put the pieces back together. But now Adrian is violently paranoid, trapping Iris and her daughter inside his madness. The life lesson is brutal. The hardest thing to accept is realizing a villain actually stepped up to save the person you love, while you were entirely focused on doing the absolute wrong thing. So what does Thomas actually want? He wants Ronan to vanish, leave Chicago tonight so Adrian believes he is a ghost. Also, Iris can live with a murderer. Thomas claims Adrian truly loves her, even if that affection is twisted. Ronan fires back, his voice dripping with venom, arguing that is not love, it is just sick ownership. But Thomas hits him with a reality check that shatters his pride. You would know all about ownership, wouldn't you? Thomas demands Ronan walk away now, or more bodies will drop. Adrian does not play games. He eliminates problems, and Ronan is his biggest target. This brings up a painful, simple life lesson. We are always the quickest to aggressively judge the toxic behavior in other people, while refusing to acknowledge the exact same darkness in our own messy lives. Why is Ronan the biggest problem? Because Iris still loves him. Adrian knows it, and that truth is driving him completely insane. The phone goes dead, leaving Ronan alone in the cold. His bag rests at his feet, his reality shattered. After 3 years, after everything he did to ruin her life, she still loves him. That tragic love is exactly what will get everyone killed. He stares at the door and makes the only chaotic choice that makes sense to a broken man. He grabs his bag and drives north toward Holloway Ridge, heading straight for the monster who loves Iris enough to murder for her. Listen to me closely. Here is a simple life lesson. Love is a beautiful thing, but when you drop it into the wrong hands, It becomes nothing more than a lit match thrown straight into a massive powder keg. Ronan is about to walk straight into a blazing fire, willing to burn everything down if it sets her free. The drive north takes 2 agonizing hours through a blinding snowstorm, turning the highway into a blur of white flakes and glowing taillights. He grips the steering wheel so hard his joints ache. His mind is trapped in a dark loop, replaying the awful truth about the pills. She nearly died. All because of him. That guilt sits heavy in his chest like a frozen stone. Every rational instinct screams at him to turn the car around and disappear into the black night. But he just keeps driving deeper into the winter storm. The simple life lesson here. Running away from your terrible mistakes might keep your body breathing, but only facing them head-on will ever truly set your soul free. Let us pause and really look at Ronan. He is trying to let Iris live, trying to stop being the poison that infects everything he touches. But he cannot do it. If Adrian is out there murdering people to build a wall around her, Iris needs to know, even if it destroys her peace. Even if she hates Ronan forever for bringing this darkness to her door. Holloway Ridge isn't just a town, it is a fortress for old money. Huge estates hidden behind iron gates. Ronan was here 4 years ago when he actually mattered, dragging Iris to some snobby fundraiser, parading her like a shiny trophy. Back then, he called her his Iris while she smiled and drank too much wine. A simple life lesson. Sometimes the absolute prettiest pictures are just painted over the deepest, most agonizing pain. You and I know the real tragedy here. He thought she was having a good time back then, but he was wrong about everything now. His navigation system drags him off the highway, onto a creepy winding road through the dense woods. The snow is untouched, except for a few fresh tire tracks slicing around the bends. 20 minutes of agonizing silence later, his headlights hit a steel sign. Private property, no trespassing. He grips the wheel and drives anyway. The dark road gets tighter. The black pines closing in like they want to crush his car. Wind dumps freezing snow onto his glass. And then he sees it. It isn't just a house. It is a straight-up stone mansion. 3 massive stories glowing warm and yellow against the dark. The simple life lesson. The most dangerous monsters always hide behind the most beautiful gates. Right out front is a massive circular driveway wrapped around a frozen fountain buried in winter snow. A sleek black Range Rover and a silver Audi sit by the main entrance. Ronan pulls his car up right behind them and kills the engine. The sudden silence in the cabin is deafening. For a long, deeply painful minute, he just sits there, staring up at that warm, glowing light spilling from the windows. Inside that light is the woman he broke, and the killer who put her back together. His heart pounds a heavy rhythm against his ribs. He is terrified, not of dying, but of seeing the absolute hatred in her eyes. It brings us to a harsh but simple life lesson. The heaviest weight a person will ever carry is the terrifying silence that falls right before you finally step out of the dark to face the consequences of your own actions. Picture this tense moment. You march up the steps to your former love's house, ready to play the tragic hero and expose her new man. But before your knuckles even tap the wood, the door swings open. There stands Adrian Hale, 6'2", wearing a perfectly tailored suit inside his own home, staring down with dead eyes that could freeze a fire. He already knew Ronan was coming. Ronan stammers out that he needs to see Iris, that she deserves the truth. Adrian just gives a hollow, chilling ghost of a smile. He invites him in out of the snow, quietly pointing out that a screaming match on Christmas night will only upset Iris. Here is the brutal life lesson right out of the gate. Sometimes the people doing the most evil things in the shadows are the only ones genuinely trying to protect the peace of the people they love. Let's take a closer look at this together, because the tension here is suffocating. Adrian does not tolerate Iris being upset. Not for a single second. He casually tells Ronan to make a choice: step inside or get lost. Noting that letting the winter draft in is simply bad manners. Picture this house. It is the kind of quiet, intimidating wealth that makes you feel small, just standing on the hardwood floors. The trap is set the moment that heavy front door clicks shut. Adrian demands his phone. When Ronan tries to play tough, Adrian just slides a heavy gun from behind his back. He does not aim it. He just holds the cold metal like an accessory to his evening suit. The lesson here: never walk into the castle of a monster and expect to play by your own rules. Ronan is completely out of his depth. He hands over that phone like a scolded child. Adrian marches him straight into a private study. A room lined with heavy books and a real crackling fire. Adrian points to a leather chair and orders him to sit. Ronan tries to scrape together a shred of dignity by refusing. But one glance at the gun resting on Adrian's thigh reminds him exactly who holds the power. He sinks into the chair. Adrian leans against his massive desk and tells Ronan exactly how painfully stupid he is. But Ronan is stubborn. He insists Iris needs to know that the man she loves is quietly murdering people in the dark. The lesson here is simple. Truth is an incredibly heavy burden, and forcing it onto someone else rarely brings them the peace you think it will. Ronan starts dropping the names of the dead. Marcus Chen Russo, the prosecutor, a long trail of bodies. Adrian gives a slow, calm nod. He admits to all of it, but then asks if knowing the truth actually changes anything. Ronan argues that Iris deserves to make her own choices. This is where it gets incredibly bitter. Adrian actually laughs. It is not a villainous laugh, but a genuinely sad sound. He points out the cold reality. Iris does not want choices. She wants safety. She wants a life where no one makes her feel crazy. Ronan tries to deny doing that, but Adrian cuts him off cold. It is a harsh life lesson. We are almost always the heroes in our own memories. Totally blind to the emotional damage we leave behind in the people we claim to care about. Adrian hits him with the absolute worst truth imaginable. He says that for 2 long years. Ronan slowly broke down a brilliant woman just to control her. When she finally escaped, she was so shattered she tried to take her own life. Adrian looks him dead in the eye and says Ronan destroyed her, and Adrian put her back together, his method of protection. Wiping out anyone who threatens that peace, Ronan tries to claim the moral high ground, insisting those dead men were not real threats. But Adrian drops a bomb that flips everything. Marcus Chen was actually hunting Ronan, mapping out his routine to kill him. The lesson is terrifying but true. Sometimes the brutal monster hiding in the shadows is the only reason you are still breathing today. The color completely drains from Ronan's face. He accuses Adrian of lying, but the older man calmly offers to show him the photos. Why would Marcus want Ronan dead? Because Ronan put him in a cage for 3 years, giving him nothing to do but dream of revenge. Adrian strolls over to the warm fireplace, adding another twist of the knife. Jimmy Russo was about to blackmail Ronan over illegal offshore accounts, a move that would have ruined his life. When a terrified Ronan asks how he knows all this, Adrian simply states that knowing everything is his job. He fixes problems for people who are too weak to fix them themselves. The ultimate life lesson here. It is incredibly easy to judge someone else's dirty hands when you are secretly the person benefiting from their violent cleanup. Adrian calls himself a professional dealing with threats. Ronan stands up, insisting Iris would absolutely hate this. Adrian just reminds him she will never find out. When Ronan threatens to expose everything, Adrian slowly lifts the gun, letting the firelight catch the metal barrel. Ronan pushes back, daring Adrian to pull the trigger. He wants Iris to hear the loud gunshot, to run downstairs and see the blood, to finally see the true monster she lives with. But Adrian's face remains totally blank. He refuses to shoot, because a dead body would be deeply traumatic for the woman he loves. Here is the lesson for tonight. True power is never about making a loud, violent mess. True power is calmly backing your enemy into a corner and forcing them to make a choice that ruins themselves. Let us look at this together, because this trap is a thing of dark beauty. Adrian is playing a grandmaster game of chess while Ronan is barely playing checkers. Adrian lays out the ultimate choice: run away. Change your name, and keep breathing, or stay. Tell Iris the truth, and take the fall for Marcus Chen getting murdered. You can see the blood freezing in Ronan's veins. He stammers that he did not pull the trigger. But the fingerprints say he did. The DNA says he did. Traffic cameras put him 3 blocks away. Ronan says it is impossible, but Adrian just drops the hammer. He simply calls it insurance. The life lesson here is brutal but simple. The truth does not matter if someone else controls the narrative. Ronan is suffocating in a cage he did not even know was built around him. Ronan catches up and accuses Adrian of planning this from the start. Adrian does not even blink. He just agrees. He admits Iris still has feelings for Ronan, noticing the little things, how she stares at her phone hoping it is him, or how she goes silent when his name drops. Adrian steps in close, delivering a deeply twisted compliment. He says Ronan is the most dangerous person in her life, because if he asked her to run away, she actually would. Ronan tries to play innocent, claiming he just wants to give her facts. But Adrian hits him with a harsh reality, saying Ronan is just making her hate herself for staying. Here is the lesson we all have to swallow. Telling someone the truth is often not about setting them free. It is just a selfish way to clear your own conscience while completely wrecking theirs. Ronan insists that what Iris does with the truth is up to her, But Adrian knows she will blame herself for the murders and spiral out of control. Leaving him to pick up the broken pieces, looking exhausted, Adrian says he is sick of fixing the damage Ronan leaves behind. Ronan tells him to let her go, but Adrian growls that he never will. Ronan calls it keeping her a prisoner. Adrian calls it keeping her safe. Adrian lowers the gun and gives his final orders: walk out, drive away, and never come back if he does. Adrian promises to let him rot in a cell for crimes he never committed. The sad life lesson here is simple. When deeply flawed people believe they are acting out of love and protection, there is absolutely no line they will not cross to keep you entirely in their grip. Adrian twists the knife, threatening to erase every good deed Ronan ever did and paint him as a monster. Ronan mutters that he already is a monster. But Adrian shuts that down, saying he is just a guy who made mistakes, but Adrian can make him worse. Ronan asks why, and Adrian answers simply, because he loves her and will not lose her. Ronan calls him out for treating her like a possession, but Adrian reminds him he did the exact same thing. Suddenly, footsteps echo in the hall, the door swings open. It is Iris. Ronan completely stops breathing. It has been 3 long years, and she looks entirely different now. It is a sharp reminder of a tough life lesson. Time changes the people we leave behind, and we never get to own the versions of them that only exist in our fading memories. You and I can feel the heavy history in the room as Ronan looks at her. She seems older, deeply exhausted, her hair longer than before. She stands barefoot in jeans and a soft sweater, yet she is so breathtaking to him that his chest physically hurts. She looks between them and quietly asks Ronan why he is there. Her voice is controlled, but a faint tremor hides beneath it. Adrian immediately steps between them like a guard dog, claiming Ronan was leaving, but Iris shuts him down, stating she was not asking him. Panicking, Ronan blurts it out. He tells her Adrian has been murdering people to protect her, and here is the craziest part of all. Her face does not even flinch. It teaches us a grim life lesson. When you have lived through enough pain, even the most shocking news in the world completely stops feeling like a surprise. Iris does not look at Ronan when she asks if it is true. She keeps her eyes locked on Adrian. He hesitates for a single heartbeat before nodding yes. The room drops into a heavy silence. Ronan waits for her to explode with anger or scream in horror. But she just looks at Adrian with profound sadness. She calmly asks who he killed. Adrian lists Marcus Chen and others who were coming after Ronan. When she asks why, Adrian admits he did it because he knows she still cares about Ronan and could not let him get hurt. Iris closes her eyes, takes a deep breath, and quietly tells Ronan to leave. This is the final tragic life lesson for tonight. Sometimes the people who love us do the most horrific things, and the weight of their twisted loyalty is far heavier than any anger we could ever feel. Ronan is pacing the floor like a trapped animal, his mind totally unraveling. He stares at Iris, begging her to acknowledge the nightmare. He screams that Adrian is literally taking lives, but she just nods, her voice dead calm. She already knows when she steps into the dim light. Ronan's breath catches. She looks so fragile, so much smaller than the woman he remembers. She quietly asks Adrian for a moment alone, and with a cold glare, the killer leaves them to the crushing weight of 3 long years of silence. Iris finally looks at Ronan's haggard face and tells him he looks terrible. He instinctively tries his old charm, telling her she looks beautiful. She cuts him down instantly. Here is a truth we all must face. You cannot bandage a shattered soul with a shallow compliment. True accountability means leaving your charm at the door. Ronan swears he isn't trying to manipulate her, he just wants to save her. The laugh that escapes Iris' lips is entirely hollow, a sound that breaks the heart. Save her from what? From the man who found her bleeding out, called the ambulance, and never left her hospital bed for 3 days. Ronan frantically repeats that Adrian is a murderer, without batting an eye. Iris delivers a reality check that freezes his blood. She already knows. She has known for months. Ronan is paralyzed by her cold acceptance. When he begs to know why, her answer is a masterclass in quiet agony. Adrian never lied. Adrian never made her feel tiny. Listen to me closely tonight. When a soul has been emotionally starved for years, they will gladly choose a dark monster who treats them gently over a supposed hero who only ever brought them pain. This is the moment Iris flips the world upside down. Ronan screams about Adrian being a killer, and she stares right through him with eyes like ice, whispering that he is exactly the same. She reminds him that he simply paid other men to pull the trigger. Ronan stammers that it isn't fair, but Iris unleashes the fury she has buried for years. She drags his sins into the light. The family shattered by his cartel, and the lives erased by his money. He tries hiding behind the excuse that his own hands never held a weapon. She shreds that illusion. He built the slaughterhouse, then pretended he wasn't covered in blood. When he cries that he is trying to change, she asks if he really wants to be better, or just feel better, the harsh truth. Real redemption means owning the silent devastation you caused, not just hiding behind technicalities. Ronan swears he only came here so she would know the truth. Iris doesn't even blink. She softly reveals that Adrian confessed his dark secrets months ago. Ronan's brain short circuits. He cannot understand why she would stay. Iris stares out the frosted window, into the dead of winter, dropping the heaviest anchor of the night. She stays because she loves him. You can practically hear Ronan's heart shattering. He desperately accuses Adrian of manipulation. But Iris' defense is absolute fire. Adrian protects her so she never has to live in fear again. She looks Ronan in the eye, asking if he knows what it feels like to wake up terrified, waiting for the man you love to destroy you. Ronan mumbles that he never laid a hand on her. Her reply is soft but lethal, reminding him that yes, he absolutely did. Life teaches us a bitter lesson here. We do not get to dictate the pain our actions leave in someone else's heart. Iris unloads the suffocating weight of her trauma, straight onto Ronan's chest. She drags every ghost into the room, every mocking comment. The endless interrogations, the nights he secretly scoured her phone. She tells him he made her believe she was going insane. Ronan reaches for a pathetic excuse, whining that he just wanted to keep her safe. Iris strikes back with crystal clarity. He wasn't trying to protect her, he was trying to own her. Ronan's hands are shaking as he chokes on his apologies, begging her to see he has grown. She asks if he actually changed or merely learned to hide his darkness better. Stepping close, she lets him see the stress-born silver in her hair and whispers the fatal blow. She tried to end her own life because of him. The ultimate lesson here: control is never love, and a simple apology cannot resurrect the spirit you already crushed. Ronan's voice cracks as he confesses he knew about her attempt. If he expected any pity, he finds none. Iris looks at him like he is nothing, coldly telling him that is a good thing. She wants him to carry that suffocating weight, because she carries it in her bones every morning. She confesses he destroyed her so completely that the grave felt like a warm embrace. Tears stream down her cheeks, yet her voice doesn't waver. She tells him how Adrian found her in the dark, patiently gluing her shattered pieces back together, without demanding she change. Ronan panics, begging her to see the blood on Adrian's hands. Iris doesn't flinch. She admits she hates the killing, but she hates Ronan even more for making it necessary. There is a haunting life lesson here. Once you break someone entirely, you forfeit the right to judge the hands that finally put them back together. We have reached the rock bottom of this heartbreak. Iris softly confesses that if Ronan died, a broken fragment of her heart would still mourn him. Adrian knows this, and he is slaughtering his enemies just to spare her from feeling that guilt. Ronan recoils, screaming that this is insanity. Iris smiles a sad smile and calls it love. When Ronan spits that it is sick obsession, she pins him with a single question. Who would know obsession better than him? The irony is suffocating. The door swings open and Adrian steps in, declaring their time is up. He touches Iris with gentle devotion, then fixes his dead eyes on Ronan. Iris tells Ronan to leave, her tone final. He makes one last pathetic offer to rescue her, but she delivers the killing blow. He cannot even save himself. The truth is simple. You cannot rescue someone from the very nightmare you created. Let's pause right here together, because this is the exact millisecond Ronan's heart flatlines. Tears spill down her cheeks, but her expression is carved from stone. He didn't lose her 3 years ago, he is losing her right now. He dragged himself through hell to reach this room, and she is still choosing the villain. Why? Because Adrian's deeply psychotic version of safety feels real, unlike Ronan's hollow promises. As Ronan drags his feet toward the door, Adrian hands back his phone. The killer leans in close, whispering a fatal promise. If he ever sees Ronan again, he won't just frame him. He will put a bullet in his head and stage it as a tragic suicide. The world will buy it, because broken men like Ronan always find the end of a barrel eventually. Ronan silently takes the phone, the bitter lesson. Our own toxic history inevitably writes the script for our tragic end. Ronan throws one last verbal punch, warning that Iris will eventually wake up and leave Adrian too. The killer gives a slow, chilling smirk. Maybe she will, he says, but she is never going back to you. The heavy door slams shut, the deadbolt echoing like a gunshot in the freezing air. Ronan drags his boots through the snow. Collapsing into his car, he sits there, paralyzed. His entire universe just collapsed into dust. The love of his life prefers a monster, simply because the monster knows how to be gentle. Suddenly, his phone screen lights up the dark cabin. A text from Lucia. She watched the entire encounter on the security feeds, when he demands to know why she let him walk into this. Her reply is devastatingly cold. He needed to witness this to finally accept his fairy tale was dead, the lesson. Sometimes life lets us burn just to destroy our own delusions. Lucia texts him the final truth. Adrian actually makes Iris feel safe, a basic task Ronan miserably failed to do. You and I both know this harsh reality of life. Raw passion means absolutely nothing if you cannot provide a peaceful place to land. Lucia warns him to run before Adrian decides to paint the snow with his blood. Ronan jams the shifter into drive, tearing down that shadow-drenched driveway. His knuckles are white, hands trembling violently against the steering wheel. His vision blurs with hot tears and the crushing weight of total defeat. Just as he hits the main road, the phone violently rings again. It's Detective Brennan, and she isn't calling to offer a shoulder to cry on. She drops a massive bomb on his lap. There is an active warrant for his arrest for the murder of Marcus Chen. Ronan's lungs seize up. He is completely innocent. But Adrian has rigged the board flawlessly. Brennan's voice is sharp, demanding his coordinates. Ronan is hyperventilating, screaming into the speaker that he didn't touch Marcus Chen. The detective just feeds him the cold line about saving it for the judge. Ronan is drowning in panic, frantically begging her to investigate Adrian Hale. He tries to explain the elaborate frame job meant to bury him alive. But Brennan doesn't believe a single syllable. To her, he is just another desperate criminal having a breakdown. She orders him to surrender, admitting he will be cuffed the second he walks in. Running will only make it worse. Ronan slams the phone down in a sheer panic. A second later, the screen glows with one final text from Adrian. The killer is just playing with his food now. 2 choices, the message reads. Rot in a concrete cage forever, or run like a hunted animal. The final lesson tonight, in a rigged game, every single exit is just another trap. You and I have seen enough heartbreak to know the scariest villains never think they are the bad guy. Adrian truly believes he is just a man protecting his own. In his cold, twisted mind, Ronan is the monster, and Adrian merely adjusted the spotlight so everyone else could see the ugly truth. 10 minutes. That is the head start. Adrian gives him before the sirens start screaming. Ronan slams the brakes on the freezing asphalt, his chest heaving. Lungs burning on empty air. He is entirely trapped in the dark. If he runs, he is a ghost forever. If he gives up, he rots for a murder he never committed. Sometimes, life forces us to choose between 2 different kinds of death. He just sits there in the freezing silence, watching everything he ever was turn to ash. Let us stop for a second, you and I, and just look at Ronan. For the first time since this living nightmare started, the cruel joke finally lands. He is losing it all, not because he actually pulled a trigger, but because of the broken man he used to be, and the absolute bitterest pill to swallow. The woman he loves is walking away to build a life with Adrian, a man who leaves bodies in his wake just to keep her smiling. She will accept it too, because a blood-stained safety net feels softer than the emotional wreckage Ronan gave her. We often accept comfortable lies over hard truths now. He is staring down a concrete cell or a life on the run. 8 minutes left to pick his poison before the flashing lights decide for him. 7 minutes, knuckles white on the wheel. His phone sits right there in the cup holder, heavy as a loaded weapon. You can almost hear the blood rushing in his ears. A deafening thunder rolling in without a single drop of rain. Run or give up. Those are the only cards left on the table. Spend his life behind bars for a crime he did not commit, or become a nameless shadow with every cop in the state hunting him down. Either way, the woman he loves is gone. Either way, Adrian wins the board. Then the screen lights up. A text from Lucia saying her father wants to help, begging him to call. His hands are trembling so violently, he nearly drops the phone. He hits dial on the last person who offered a hand. Thomas Reeves answers on the very first ring. Ronan confesses he is pulled over, maybe 5 miles from Iris and her home. Thomas does not sugarcoat it. He tells Ronan the police are already swarming. Ronan just whispers that he knows. He knows Adrian framed him. Tying the knot so perfectly there is not a single loose thread. So Thomas lays out the brutal reality: the board is cleared, and Ronan has 0 moves left. Ronan closes his heavy eyes against the dark road. What do you actually want from me? He asks. Thomas wants him gone. A clean break, completely off the grid in some quiet Canadian town. Handed a fake name and a hollow life. Why throw him a rope? Because if Ronan rots in a cell, Iris might still visit him. If he just vanishes into the cold air, she finally gets to heal. The hardest lesson we ever learn is when to walk away so someone else can breathe. Ronan slowly opens his eyes. I cannot run, Ronan says, his voice flat and completely empty. Thomas pushes back hard, telling him the luxury of choice expired 10 minutes ago. Out in the bitter night air, the faint, desperate wail of police sirens starts bleeding through the silence. They are coming right now. Thomas warns him. 3 minutes at best. But Ronan is entirely paralyzed by the one question that still matters. If he runs into the shadows, does Iris ever find out Adrian slaughtered those innocent people? Does she ever realize her perfect life is built on a graveyard? Thomas goes dead quiet. No, Adrian is far too careful, shielded by elite money and untouchable power. Then I need to prove it, Ronan says. Thomas tells him it is over, but Ronan just mutters, not yet, and hangs up. The sirens are screaming now. The flashing lights are maybe a mile away now, eating up the distance fast. Ronan pulls his battered Toyota back onto the road. But he does not run from the approaching cruisers. He points his headlights straight at them. His mind is racing at absolute light speed. Adrian played a flawless game of chess, planting the fake evidence, buying the right witnesses, but Adrian missed one tiny, fatal detail. Ronan has absolutely nothing left to lose in this world. And let me tell you, a man with nothing left to lose is the most dangerous force on Earth. He slams his foot on the gas, pushing that dying engine harder than it was ever built to go. 2 police cars fly right past him in the opposite lane, rushing to the ghost he left behind, completely blind to the fire he is driving toward. He figures he has maybe 10 minutes before the cops realize they chased a phantom, driving with one hand gripped on the wheel. He dials a number he swore he deleted 3 years ago. 4 agonizing rings. Then a tired woman answers the line. When he says his name is Ronan Vex, a suffocating silence drops over the call. What do you want? Asks Carol Mitchell, the widow of the federal prosecutor Adrian buried. Ronan drops the bomb. He tells her the sudden heart attack that took her husband was a complete lie. He was standing right there in the room. He watched the murder happen. Carol calls him a lunatic, but Ronan insists he can prove every word. He tells her to meet him in 20 minutes at their old coffee shop. She refuses. Why meet the man whose dark past got her husband killed in the first place? Stick with me here, because you and I both know this is where the tragedy sets its hooks deep. Ronan lays it out plain and simple. If she ever wants real justice for the man she loved, she meets him right now. If she hangs up the phone, he vanishes off the face of the earth forever. He listens to her shaky breathing through the speaker, feeling the exact second her heavy grief morphs into a dangerous curiosity. 20 minutes, she whispers, and the call goes dead. Ronan keeps his foot on the gas. The coffee shop has not changed a single bit. Same faded red awning. Same sad window booths where he used to sit with her husband 3 long years ago. It is late on Christmas night, and the only souls inside are the ones who have nowhere else to be. Carol is waiting in the corner. That is the brutal reality of bone-deep grief. It ages a person so much faster than the simple passing of time ever could. Her hair is thinning to gray and heavy. Bitter lines carve into the skin around her mouth. Ronan slides into the cracked vinyl booth right across from her. You have 5 minutes, she tells him, her voice like ice. He does not waste a single breath. He tells her that her husband was secretly reopening his investigation. When she demands to know how he could possibly know that, Ronan delivers the fatal blow. Adrian Hale told him directly. Adrian has been systematically slaughtering anyone who might crack the perfect illusion he built for Iris. He lists the names. The bodies put in the ground just to protect one woman from Ronan's ugly history. Carol just stares at him, frozen. She leans back against the worn vinyl, her mind spinning. You are telling me my husband was murdered by some lovesick psychopath, she asks. Her voice trembling. Ronan just nods, but when she demands the hard evidence, the actual proof to lock him away, Ronan has to admit the bitter truth. He has no recording of the confession. Carol practically writes him off in that exact second. She reminds him he is about to be arrested for murder, and every desperate guy behind bars claims he was framed. But Ronan leans over the table, his eyes locked on hers. He tells her that her husband was a genuinely good man who did not deserve to be erased just because a billionaire felt threatened. If she walks away right now, Adrian is going to keep dropping bodies. Carol's jaw clenches tight as the truth settles in. Listen, you and I both know this is an absolute shot in the dark. Ronan is begging her to find hidden emails, phone records, anything tying the prosecutor to the graves Adrian dug. Carol points out the flaw even if she finds those files. It does not prove Adrian pulled the trigger. But Ronan knows how this dark game is played. It creates doubt. and doubt is the thread you pull to unravel a billionaire's perfect life. He tells her they are on the same side. Carol laughs bitterly, saying they are nothing alike. He is a criminal who destroys lives. Ronan does not try to defend himself, he knows what he is. But he reminds her that Adrian is a monster who kills without consequence just because he has money, sometimes. Finding true justice means you have to be willing to step into the shadows yourself. Carol asks what happens if she finds real evidence. Ronan says they take it straight to the federal agents, making so much noise nobody can bury it. She warns him this will completely destroy his life. I am already destroyed, he tells her. She stares at him for a long minute before reaching for her phone. Her husband kept everything on a secure server, and she holds the keys. She searches the name Adrian Hale. Suddenly, all the color drains from her face. She finds a hidden file detailing the ultimate betrayal. The notes describe Adrian's enforcer, Luca, standing with a trembling gun. Realizing the man who ordered the hit on his bloodline was the exact same father figure who tucked him in during those stormy nights in the gutter. The entire empire was built on a tragic, bloody lie. The prosecutor had been pulling bank records, slowly welding a cage meant for Adrian. Ronan feels his pulse hammering against his ribs. Print it. He urges. Carol panics, saying she can't print from a phone. Email it everywhere, he replies. He tells her to blast it to anyone who will listen. So Adrian can never bury these sins. Her trembling fingers tap the glass. Seconds later, Ronan's phone vibrates. 30 pages of cold, heavy evidence. It isn't a smoking gun, but it's a massive motive. Carol stares at him with terrified eyes, whispering that this won't be enough to lock Adrian in a cell. Ronan agrees, his voice dropping low. It isn't enough for prison, but it's enough to ask the kind of questions that get people killed. Sometimes. Finding the truth doesn't bring you peace. It just paints a target on your own back. Then why are you doing this? Carol asks, bewildered. Ronan looks her dead in the eye, his expression hollow. Because somebody has to. Right on cue. His phone rings, shattering the quiet. It's Detective Brennan. When Brennan barks for his location, Ronan casually mentions he is just having some coffee. The detective warns him about the active warrant. Ronan already knows. The cop demands his surrender, but Ronan's voice turns to ice. He didn't kill Marcus Chen. Adrian Hale framed him. He warns Brennan that Adrian has left 5 bodies behind and won't stop until someone puts him down. Then, Ronan drops the hammer. He tells the detective to check his inbox for 30 pages of a dead prosecutor's files, exposing Adrian's entire crime ring. If there is one thing life teaches us, it's that the loudest way to fight a powerful lie is to finally hand over the undeniable truth. You and I are watching a man burn his own life to the ground right here. Ronan tells the detective that Adrian is a professional ghost who deletes his threats. The prosecutor was a threat. Marcus was a threat, and now Ronan is next. He warns the cop that if they look away, the blood will keep spilling. Brennan demands his location. But Ronan just whispers goodbye and kills the call. Carol stares at him like he is already a walking corpse, telling him he just committed suicide. The cops will lock him away the second they find him. Ronan gives a tired nod. When she asks for his master plan, he admits he doesn't have one. This broken strategy is all he has left. She stands sliding a lawyer's card across the table. Her husband hated chaos, but he loved the truth. It reminds us that sometimes the most honorable choices leave us with the emptiest hands. The widow walks away, her boots echoing on the diner floor, but right before she hits the door, she turns back. She tells Ronan that her late husband, a man who spent his life putting monsters in cages, would be sick to his stomach seeing an innocent guy take the fall. She wants Adrian Hale to burn. Ronan just sits in that fading diner light, completely numb, promising he will burn right alongside him. Right in that heavy silence, his phone lights up. It is Adrian, texting him. Arrogantly bragging that the police and the media are already hunting for his head. He thinks he has won. But here is the thing about hitting rock bottom. Sometimes in this life, the very people who try to completely destroy you only end up handing you the exact, desperate motivation you need to finally finish the fight. Adrian texts like a king who holds all the cards, boasting that Ronan is about to become the most hunted man in the state. But Ronan doesn't flinch. He fires back that Adrian is going down. The sheer arrogance of Adrian Hale is staggering. He truly believes he is untouchable, bragging about the 20 years he spent building walls and buying off politicians. But Ronan hits him with the absolute coldest reality check. You cannot destroy a man whose life is already in ashes. That is the fatal blind spot. Adrian mocks him, calling him broken, but Ronan doesn't care anymore. He is just a ghost haunting his own life. The lesson here is simple but terrifying. Never push a broken person into a corner. A person with absolutely nothing left to lose will always be the most dangerous force on earth. Ronan steps out of the coffee shop, and the freezing wind hits him like a physical blow. Thick snow is coming down hard, burying the frozen pavement. The whole world is freezing over, matching the absolute deadness in his chest. He climbs into his car and drives blindly into the whiteout. Gripping the wheel, he calls David Chen, the attorney, begging to know if they can prove he didn't murder Marcus. But Chen hits him with the harsh truth of the justice system. Ronan has the motive, the pattern. Everything the cops need except the physical proof of his innocence. He holds all the puzzle pieces, but the picture is completely wrong. It just goes to show you. Knowing the truth in your heart and being able to prove it in a courtroom are two very different things. And falling into that dark gap can easily cost you your entire life. This is where the frustration boils over. The lawyer offers the only logical advice left on the table: turn yourself in. Let me negotiate a plea deal. But Ronan doesn't want a deal. He wants Adrian in handcuffs. Chen drops the bitterest truth of the night. Men like Adrian Hale do not get arrested. They get investigated, they hire $1 million suits, and they walk away completely clean. Ronan refuses to accept that reality. He tells the lawyer to go to hell and kills the call. You can see his knuckles turning white, his hands shaking violently against the steering wheel. He just torched his very last bridge. No cops, no lawyer, no safety net left to catch him. It is a harsh, agonizing reminder that sometimes doing the right thing means choosing to stand completely alone, even when the entire world is telling you that you are crazy. Let's pause and appreciate the absolute madness of this moment. Ronan just declared a one-man war against a billionaire sociopath with infinite money and absolutely zero morals. It is literal suicide. But here is the tragic irony: if Ronan goes to jail, Adrian wins it all. Iris will spend the rest of her life sleeping next to a monster. So Ronan violently whips the car around and heads north, back toward Holloway Ridge. He is completely done asking for permission. We watch his solitary car slicing through the dark, empty, snow-covered roads. He is driving straight toward his own funeral, and he knows it. But life teaches us a brutal lesson out in the cold. There are some boundaries we simply cannot let people cross. Even if defending that final line means we lose everything we have left in this world. 40 minutes later, Ronan hits the private road, ignoring the warning signs. He kills his headlights and creeps forward into the shadows. The only light left is a bruised moon struggling through heavy storm clouds, through the jagged, barren winter trees. Adrian's massive estate finally comes into view. It is glowing warm, looking exactly like a perfect little fairy tale built on ugly lies. Ronan parks a quarter-mile out and starts trekking through the drifts. The snow is knee-deep. Every single step is a brutal, exhausting physical fight. White clouds of breath puff out into the freezing night air as his face goes completely numb. Sometimes, the absolute hardest paths we take in life are the ones we walk in total silence, knowing perfectly well that nobody is coming to save us when things go wrong. Let's break down this visual together, because it is pure agony. Ronan is freezing in the dark, watching the only woman he loves standing warmly inside, with the man who ruined his life. He cannot hear a word through the thick glass, but their body language screams the truth. Adrian is pacing the room, throwing his hands up in a panic, and Iris, she reaches out, softly touches his arm, and the monster instantly relaxes. He pulls her close, kissing her forehead. Ronan has to look away, his chest caving in from the unbearable heartbreak. Suddenly, his phone buzzes. A text from Lucia warns that she sees him on the security cameras. It is a devastating reminder that no matter how deeply you love someone, you simply cannot save them if they have already chosen to find their comfort in the dark. Lucia is practically begging him over text to go home, warning that Adrian has already called the cops. They are only 10 minutes away. But Ronan doesn't see a warning. He just sees a 10-minute timer to end this long nightmare. He stands up from the brush and walks right out into the wide-open snow. No more sneaking around in the dark. He wants Adrian to see him coming. He marches straight up to the heavy front door, but before he can even knock, it swings wide open. Adrian is standing there, leveling a gun directly at Ronan's chest. He barks a threat, but Ronan just stares back, his voice steady as he dares him to pull the trigger. It exposes a terrifying truth of human nature. When a man is finally ready to face his own end, the weapons meant to scare him lose absolutely all of their power. Adrian's jaw is clenched so tight it might shatter, ordering Ronan off his property immediately. But Ronan is not budging a single inch. He knows the sirens are coming, and he tells Adrian exactly what his final play is. He is going to scream the ugly truth to the police, to the news anchors, to absolutely anyone with ears. He promises to shine such a blinding spotlight on Adrian's crimes that the world will have no choice but to dig into the dirt. Adrian tries to play it cool, claiming nobody will ever believe a wanted fugitive, but Ronan knows how the justice system works. Once they start digging, they will inevitably find the cracks. You simply cannot bury that many dark secrets without leaving a bloody trace. Because in the end, the truth always has a way of stubbornly scratching its way out of the dirt. Adrian takes a slow step closer, trying to call the bluff. His voice is ice cold as he tells Ronan that if he shoots him right now, it will be ruled a textbook case of self-defense. A desperate criminal broke onto his private estate in the dead of night, and he was simply protecting his innocent family. It is a terrifyingly solid legal defense. You can actually see Adrian's finger tightening on the trigger, and for an agonizing split second, Ronan braces for the bullet, but then, the heavy door opens wider. Iris steps out into the freezing winter wind. She screams at Adrian to stop. Adrian barks at her to get back inside the house, but she ignores him completely. She walks right into the direct line of fire between the two men. It shows you a painful reality sometimes. The very people we try the hardest to protect are the ones who bravely step right into the crossfire. Listen closely, because this is the exact moment that absolutely shatters you. You and I look at this picture and expect Iris to be the tragic victim. Right, but the truth is so much colder. She stares right into Ronan's eyes and admits the darkest secret of all. She knows Adrian put those people in the ground, and she is entirely fine with it. Her voice cracks, not from guilt, but from exhaustion. She tells Ronan she is tired of the chaos, tired of waiting for a broken past to ruin their future. For the very first time, she feels secure. She traded her soul for a beautiful golden cage, and she refuses to walk out. It is a brutal life lesson for all of us tonight. Some people will gladly lock themselves away, if it means they never have to face the freezing storm outside. Far off in the freezing distance, the thin, lonely wail of police sirens cuts right through the bitter winter air. Time is officially up. But Ronan does not run instead. A broken, bloodied smile spreads across his face. He pulls his cell phone from his coat and holds it high in the freezing wind like a trophy. He was recording every single second. Iris confessing her sins, Adrian spitting his fatal threats, it is all there, and the real kicker. He already fired off that audio file to every detective and hungry journalist in the city. Adrian's face goes completely dead. He tries to argue it will never hold up in a courtroom, but Ronan knows the law does not matter anymore. He only needs doubt. Plant that one seed, and a billionaire's perfect lie burns to ash. Then absolute chaos breaks loose. Adrian lunges forward, wild and desperate like a cornered animal. Ronan tries to pull back, but the weapon explodes. That deafening crack echoes through the dead, snowy woods. Ronan feels the hot metal rip right through his shoulder. The violent force of the bullet spins him completely sideways, igniting a burning fire deep in his chest. He hits the frozen earth so hard the air is instantly punched from his lungs. Above him, Iris screams until her throat tears. Horrified by the monster she chose, red and blue police lights begin washing over the dark pine trees, painting the snow in tragedy. It is a harsh reminder that pulling a trigger never solves the pain, it only shatters whatever fragile pieces were left behind. I want you and I to look closely at this final frame together. This right here is the tragic masterpiece of our story. Ronan is bleeding his life away into the cold snow, right on the doorstep of the woman who chose a monster over his heart. He tries to force a chuckle, but he only chokes on his own blood. Iris drops to her knees, pressing her shaking hands against his torn chest, desperately begging him to keep his eyes open. With the last ounce of strength he has left, Ronan forces his focus onto her face. He whispers that he loved her. He admits he ruined so much, but that love was the most real thing he ever had. It is a bitter, agonizing end. It teaches us the hardest lesson sometimes. Love simply is not enough to save us from our own destructive choices. Fast forward just a bit, and the freezing night turns into total madness. Sirens are deafening, heavily armed police are swarming the property, and Adrian is finally shoved hard into the icy dirt. Through the noise, someone is screaming at Iris to step away from Ronan, who is rapidly fading into the snow, but she refuses to let him slip away. Her reasoning is brutally, painfully honest. If he dies tonight, he wins. He becomes a holy martyr, and she will spend the rest of her miserable life wondering if she chose the wrong man. As the edges of Ronan's vision start turning to pure black, he actually manages a weak, fading smile. He looks up at her tear-stained face and finds a strange, quiet peace. He finally did one thing right. He forced her to see the ugly truth. For a broken guy like Ronan, knowing Iris finally witnessed the real Adrian was more than enough. It honestly had to be. Because that was the only tiny piece of redemption he was ever going to hold before the darkness swallowed him now. Imagine expecting the quiet void of death, only to be dragged back by the steady, annoying beep of a hospital heart monitor. Ronan forces his heavy eyelids open, instantly blinded by the harsh fluorescent lights bouncing off the ceiling. He is actually alive. It is the biggest shock of his entire existence. He was absolutely certain that bloody snow was his grave. Then reality comes crashing down, and his shoulder erupts in blinding, agonizing fire. He tries to shift his weight and regrets it. A female voice tells him to hold still. It is not Iris. He slowly turns his head, wincing with every agonizing millimeter, and finds a nurse casually checking the fluids dripping into his bruised arm. Without missing a beat, she drops the heavy news that he has been completely unconscious for 2 entire days. That bullet tore through his shoulder and missed his main artery by a fraction of an inch. She tells him he is incredibly lucky. Though Ronan is definitely not feeling very blessed in this bed, the nurse gives him a dry smirk, promising he will feel lucky once the heavy painkillers wear off. Then she drops the real anchor on his chest. There are police officers waiting right outside his door. She walks out, leaving Ronan entirely alone with his racing thoughts. Did his desperate gamble actually work? Or is Adrian still running free? You and I both know the tension in that room is suffocating. This is the moment of truth. Detective Brennan pushes the door open, looking like she has not slept a single second since that fateful night. She drags a plastic chair over to his bed and dryly points out he has had a rough week then. She delivers the sweetest words Ronan could ever hope to hear. Adrian Hale is locked in a cage. They are hitting him with attempted murder and tying him directly to Marcus Chen and a graveyard of other bodies. Ronan can barely draw a breath as he asks if she finally believes his story. She nods. That recording was the golden key. Once the police started digging, they found an ocean of dirty money, but there is a catch. Adrian is rich and his lawyers are absolute sharks. Brennan leans back in her chair, her voice turning cold as she promises that they are going to make Adrian's life a living, breathing nightmare. And here is the beautiful plot twist Ronan so desperately needed. Every single fabricated charge against him has been wiped clean. The detectives figured out that Adrian meticulously planted Ronan's DNA at the crime scene and pressed his fingerprints onto those empty shell casings. Ronan softly asks if he's actually a free man now. Brennan confirms it, though she throws in a heavy, exhausted warning for him to stop playing amateur detective. She tells him, almost gently, that he actually did the right thing, even if his execution was dangerously stupid. Ronan manages a weak laugh, joking that stupidity has always been his specialty. Then, Brennan pauses in the doorway and drops one last heavy truth. Iris went on the record. She spilled every dirty detail about Adrian's murders and his twisting psychological control. Ronan's throat locks up at the mere sound of her name. He desperately begs to know where she is, but Brennan shuts it down. Iris is buried deep in protective custody, because Adrian's loyal goons will absolutely try to silence her. When Ronan asks if she is okay, the detective refuses to sugarcoat the tragedy. Iris is shattered, but she is breathing, which is a rare miracle in this dark world. 3 days later, Ronan gets discharged. There is no grand parade waiting for him. Just a bored nurse handing him a stack of discharge papers and pointing him toward the cold hospital exit doors. Stick with me here, because this is where the story gets quiet and, honestly, so intensely real. Ronan walks out into the freezing afternoon air. Mysteriously, his dusty car is sitting right there in the hospital lot. He has zero clue who dropped it off. He just sinks into the driver's seat. His battered body is screaming in agony. But for the first time in years, his heart is beating a steady rhythm. He drives back to his apartment, stepping into a sad time capsule of his miserable past. Dirty coffee mugs, scattered laundry, that heavy familiar smell of giving up. He was only gone for a few violent days, but he lived a lifetime out there. His phone is flooded with voicemails from fake friends and hungry reporters. But his heavy eyes lock onto one single text message from his mom. His mother's message is incredibly simple. She saw the blood on the evening news, and she needs to hear his voice. When he dials her number, she answers on the very first ring. You can hear the raw, shaking terror of a mother who almost lost her son. She scolds him for taking a bullet without calling, and Ronan weakly jokes that being in a coma makes dialing difficult. It is a painfully human Fragile moment. Then she takes a breath and asks the big question. Did he see Iris? He tells her that Iris finally chose the light and is preparing to testify. Ronan wonders out loud if he ruined her life by forcing the truth, but his mother drops a profound, beautiful lesson right here. It is always better to stand broken and honest than to live quietly inside a perfectly comfortable lie. Sitting in that quiet, messy room, Ronan confesses that he does not even know who he is anymore. His mother's voice softens, telling him that he finally has the rest of his life to figure it out. They spend the next 20 minutes talking about absolutely nothing important. The shifting weather, a neighbor's garden, just regular, boring things that exist far away from murder plots and loaded guns. When he finally hangs up, that gaping, bloody hole in his chest feels just a tiny bit smaller. 2 quiet weeks slowly slide by. Ronan falls into a slow, grinding routine of painful physical therapy, talking with state lawyers, and completely ignoring the media circus outside his door. Wake up, drink black coffee, stretch the wounded shoulder, sleep. It is incredibly boring. And it is perfect. Picture it, listeners, a gray, unforgiving morning. A heavy knock echoes through Ronan's bleak apartment. He drags the door open, and there stands Lucia. Gone is the cold weapon from the park. She steps into his hollow room, scanning the shadows, and calls the place depressing. She tells him to buy a plant. He mutters that things just die when he looks at them. God, that is the most honest sentence he has ever spoken then. She pulls out an envelope. Iris's handwriting. You can almost hear his pulse flatline. He asks why Iris didn't come. Lucia delivers the fatal blow. She is not ready, and she never will be. Looking at him just suffocates her with the ghost of her own trauma. Here is the hard truth for us tonight. Sometimes the people we love most are the very ones we wound the deepest. Lucia spells out the cruelest irony. Loving him was a literal death sentence, and Iris is finally learning how to breathe without his shadow. She sets the envelope on the dusty table, a paper-thin barrier that might as well be a brick wall. Iris is grateful he stopped Adrian and bought her a ticket out of hell. Ronan's voice cracks as he admits he did not do it for a thank you. He did it because he still loves her. Lucia knows. Iris knows. But right here is where the tragedy sets in. It changes absolutely nothing. Lucia gives him a pitying look. She tells him he is not a good man, but he is trying. Ronan lets out a hollow laugh, calling it a low bar. The lesson here is simple. Sometimes that low bar is the only one we have left to hold on to when the world falls apart. The door clicks shut. He is entirely alone. Ronan stands in the silence, staring at a folded piece of paper like it is a loaded gun. His name is in her careful handwriting. He tears it open. There is no date, no polite greeting, just raw, agonizing truth bleeding out in blue ink. You and I have been watching this tragedy consume them. And this letter lays the wreckage bare. She admits she started and stopped a dozen times, tossing drafts because perfect words do not exist for this kind of pain. She thanks him for taking a beating that nearly ended him, for forcing a door open when she didn't realize she was trapped. It proves a quiet truth we all face. Sometimes our worst prisons are the ones with invisible bars. Then comes the twist. Adrian was not a monster, at least, not in the beginning. Let's pause and look at this deeply broken dynamic. Iris writes that Adrian was patient. He saved her when she was scraping rock bottom. She fell into the classic trap, convincing herself that gratitude was the exact same thing as love, and that a gilded cage meant she was safe. She was wrong. Adrian loved her in the exact same suffocating way Ronan did. Total obsession, complete control. He was just far better at hiding the chains. She allowed it because she was too exhausted to keep fighting the world. Ronan ripped that blindfold off, and a part of her hates him for it. Why? Because ignorance is a warm blanket. The lesson is brutal but true. The truth always demands a painful price before it sets you free now. She must build her entire life from scratch. Despite the anger, she is deeply grateful. Her little girl is safe. Listen to the raw honesty in these lines. She does not forgive Ronan. She probably never will. But she finally understands he was a shattered man, desperately trying to show affection using the only broken tools he had. His trauma broke her trauma. They annihilated each other, and life does not come with a rewind button. This is her final sign-off. No fiery anger. No desperate pleas, just a quiet goodbye. She hopes he finds some sliver of peace. She hopes he learns who he is when he is not obsessed with possessing someone else. The cruelest truth. She cannot be there to watch him heal. We must remember this. Sometimes letting go of the person you love is the only way you both survive. That lesson leaves a permanent scar. Picture him right now. Ronan standing by the frosted window, watching the heavy snow fall like a scene from a tragic movie. He reads Iris's letter 3 times. Take care of yourself, it is finally over. Here is the most agonizing irony. She isn't gone because she stopped caring. She is gone because she cared so intensely that it was tearing her apart. For the first time in his miserable, selfish life, he actually understands it. He doesn't shatter the glass. He doesn't run into the freezing street to chase her. He just stands there in the quiet and swallows the bitter truth. True love is never about ownership. Sometimes, the only real way to prove you love someone is to have the strength to let them walk away. He pulls out his phone, but he doesn't text her, he texts himself. 2 solitary words glow on the dark screen: be better. That is his entire grand plan now. He does not want to be a flawless saint. And he isn't looking for redemption. He just wants to be a fraction better than the broken man who destroyed the only good thing he ever touched. It reminds us that progress doesn't require perfection, just a single step forward. He pockets the phone and steps into the winter cold. Fast forward 6 weeks to the circus of Adrian Hale's trial. Ronan doesn't even show his face. He stays in his hollow apartment, forcing down cold noodles, watching the broadcast, trying not to choke on his own regret. The trial drags on for 3 agonizing weeks. The prosecution lays out the grim toll: 5 murders. A terrifying trail of blood paraded right in front of the jury. The prosecution brought all the receipts, financial records tying Adrian to the gutter, phone pings putting him exactly where the bodies hit the floor. And then there was Iris, sitting on that stand, terrified but so incredibly brave, spilling every dark secret. Then they hit play on Ronan's tape. Naturally, the defense tried to twist it. They painted Ronan as a bitter crook, labeled Iris a hysterical victim, and called the recording illegal trash. But after 5 agonizing days, the jury returned, guilty on 3 counts. Life in a concrete box with no parole. The polished TV anchors smiled, calling it a flawless victory for justice. Ronan just stared at the screen. Here is a lesson we learned the hard way. Justice is rarely perfect. He knew it was an incomplete victory, but it was a start. A tiny ounce of balance in a shattered world. 3 heavy months pass and Ronan does the last thing you would expect. He gets a quiet, honest, boring job. He drags himself down to a rusty community center on the rough side of town. His new gig: teaching financial survival to former convicts, credit, budgeting, how to avoid getting scammed. The pay is garbage, but somehow it fits his fractured soul, ironically. Laundering dirty cash for a decade makes you a brilliant teacher on how the system is rigged. The worn-out people sitting in those cheap plastic chairs actually listen to him. Late one evening, a fragile girl, fresh out of a county cell, shuffles up to his desk. She stares at him with haunted eyes and whispers, "Mr. Vex." She is trembling, terrified to be standing so close to his dark reputation, but she just has to get the words out. She manages a shaky whisper, thanking him nobody had ever bothered to show her how to survive without running a hustle then. She asks the question hovering in the room. How does a terrifying mob enforcer end up in a damp basement teaching math to former inmates? Ronan lets out a heavy sigh. He looks her in the eye and delivers the crushing truth. He says he was never truly important. He only thought he was. And it took losing everything that actually mattered to realize the painful difference. She nods slowly. Then she asks if a person can really change. Ronan doesn't hand her a fake movie speech. He shares a vital life lesson. People can try, and that trying is the only thing that matters. You have to wake up every single morning and fight your own dark shadow. A small smile breaks across her tired face. She tells him that is real good. Ronan gathers his cheap folders and steps out into the mild spring night. The winter ice has melted, and the city breathes easier. He wanders over to that familiar coffee shop, the exact place where all this chaos began. He claims a table in the shadows, orders a black coffee, and unlocks his phone. The digital note is still there. Be better. He has stared at those words every single day for 4 agonizing months. It has become his religion. Then the universe decides to play its cruelest trick. The glass door swings open. A woman walks in, holding the hand of a tiny 3-year-old girl with enormous dark eyes. The child is happily babbling, entirely oblivious to the emotional shockwave detonating in the cafe. The woman freezes in her tracks. She slowly looks up. It is Iris. The one beautiful thing he broke that he can never ever fix. You and I have both felt it. That sickening second when your heart plummets, their eyes lock and the oxygen vanishes. Iris doesn't scream. Her face turns to cold stone. She scoops up her little girl, physically shielding the child with her own body. A primal instinct against the man she once loved. That rejection has to burn like acid. But Ronan understands. He slowly stands, dumps his untouched coffee and heads for the door. He owes her the peace of his absence, As he brushes past, a whisper cuts the silence. She says his name. He freezes, but doesn't dare look back. She quietly thanks him for not making a scene. He mutters that he is trying to be better. And this, she already knows. Her people have been watching him. The irony is suffocating. Finally, his voice cracks. He simply says, "She is beautiful." You can hear the bittersweet smile in her voice when she replies. Her name is Lucia, named in honor of her murdered sister, the sister that sparked this entire miserable war. Ronan gives a slow nod and starts walking toward the exit, but she stops him one last time. She tells him she is genuinely glad he is trying. Then she drops the final hammer. She reminds him that trying does not magically erase the past. The terrible things they did, the spilled blood, the betrayal. It is a permanent stain. They are done forever. Ronan doesn't argue. He just whispers, "I know." He steps out into the streetlights and he never looks back. There is no dramatic orchestra swelling. No passionate kiss in the rain. Just the quiet, heavy life lesson echoing in the dark. You can love someone with all your heart and still ruin them beyond repair. It is late and you are listening. Let's look at this piece by piece, shall we? You and I both know there is no fairy tale ending waiting in the dark here. Just two completely wrecked souls finally admitting they are poisoned to one another, making the agonizing choice to walk away. But listen to me, that is love too. The real, heavy kind of love that forces you to let go instead of dragging them down into your personal hell. It is a goodbye that aches in your marrow but leaves no fresh scars. 6 months bleed away. Ronan ditches that suffocating apartment and buys a tiny, beat-up house with a patch of dead dirt for a yard. He even buys a sad little potted plant and against all odds keeps it alive. He spends his days at the local center, teaching ex-convicts how to survive. He spends his hours helping felons fill out job forms and driving them to interviews. It is a million miles from the criminal empire he thought he was destined to rule. But it is honest, and ironically, being honest feels 1,000 times better than being feared. One quiet night, his mother shows up unannounced. She wanders his cramped house, judging the scuffed baseboards, before stopping at his potted plant. She looks at her son, this former mobster, with heavy regrets, and tells him she is genuinely proud. Ronan is completely floored. Proud of what? He lost his girl, his money, his entire reign, but she hits him with the raw truth. He did not quit on his own soul. He could have crawled into a bottle and vanished, but he chose the harder path. He chose to stay alive. They sit on the rotting porch, sipping plain tea like perfectly ordinary people. Then his mother asks the heavy question hanging in the dark air. Does he still think about her? Ronan doesn't even blink every single day. He admits the memory of Iris hurts like a physical wound. His mother, in all her brutal wisdom, just nods her head and whispers, "Good." Because it means he is finally human. It means he actually felt something real. Even if he handled it like a disaster. He confesses he loved Iris wrong, but his mother waves the guilt away. He is learning to love her better now by not chasing her, by leaving her in absolute peace. By building his own quiet life instead of burning down hers. That is what actual growth looks like. It is agonizingly slow, and it is supposed to be. When his mother leaves, Ronan sits alone in the thick quiet of the dark. He pulls out his phone and opens that same worn-out digital note. Be better. He stares at it for a long time, and then types 2 more words. Keep going. That is the whole secret to surviving the wreckage of your own mistakes. 2 years slip by since the trial. Ronan is walking home when fate throws another ghost into his path. It is Celeste. She is locking up a corner bakery, looking exhausted but genuinely happy. He almost ducks his head to keep walking, the shame still heavy as lead. But she spots him under the street lamp and calls his name. He admits he teaches financial literacy nearby, making a dark joke about being useless. She just looks at him and gives a real bright laugh. Stick with me, because this is where the healing starts. She is glowing under the city lights. She tells him she married Daniel, and they bought this bakery. They survived the nightmare he helped create. He offers his congratulations, and he truly means it. Then the air gets heavy. Celeste brings up Adrian and Iris. She heard what went down, knowing it was brutal. Ronan just nods, his voice low. He tells her it was necessary. Sometimes you have to burn the entire forest down just to stop the rot. Then she looks him dead in the eyes and asks if he is okay. It is the exact question she asked him 3 years ago in a totally different life. He is shocked she even cares. He tells her he is getting there, because radical honesty is all he has left. She hands him a small business card. She tells him to stop by, that the coffee is on her. She actually wants to see him again. It is such a mundane thing. But for a guy who used to ruin lives for a living, A free cup of coffee feels like absolute grace. He puts the card in his wallet and keeps walking. Lighter than he was 5 minutes ago. Fast forward another year, 3 years since the trial. Ronan gets an envelope in the mail with no return address, just his name in unfamiliar handwriting. He opens it, and a single photograph falls out. It is Iris, standing in a sunlit field with her daughter. They are laughing, the wind is blowing, and they look completely untouchable by the darkness of his past. He slowly flips the picture over. 5 words are written in black ink. She is happy, she is safe. Ronan stands there, staring at the photograph. He doesn't burn it or throw it away. He gently tucks it into a desk drawer. A silent memorial for a beautiful life that went up in flames. Fast forward 5 years. The scene shifts to a busy community center. Ronan is standing in front of 20 struggling people, teaching them about compound interest and predatory loans. And here is the real kicker. They are actually hanging on to his every word. Why? Because he isn't some corporate suit preaching from a glass skyscraper. He is a guy who lost his entire empire and is still sweeping up the ashes. He knows exactly what it means to hit absolute zero and start over from nothing. It is a slow, deeply unglamorous redemption arc, but it is real. And it is entirely his own. Class wraps up and a young kid walks over, fresh out of a cell for robbery. He trembles under his tough guy act, asking Ronan if guys from the gutter can actually make it. Ronan looks through his armor and tells a ghost story about a boy named Luca. He paints the agonizing picture. Luca stood there, the steel of his piece trembling in his grip. The biggest enemy of his life, the man who ordered the hit on his bloodline, was the exact same guy who tucked him in during those stormy nights in the gutter. His own father. Ronan uses that tragic father-son betrayal to prove the game only devours its own. The kid is stunned. He asks what makes the winners different from the losers. Ronan doesn't sugarcoat it. They just had better starting conditions. Nothing more. The kid argues that none of that is fair. Ronan just shrugs. You and I know the truth. Fair is a fabricated myth. The only thing that matters is how you play the terrible hand you were dealt. The kid pushes back. What happens if he fails? Ronan tells him to try again. What if I keep failing? You keep taking the hits until you stay standing. The kid admits that sounds bone-deep exhausting. Ronan agrees, but reminds him it sure beats digging your own early grave. The kid cracks a small smile, thanks him, and walks out into the world. Ronan packs his bag and heads home. The sun is setting. Spring bleeding into summer, his phone buzzes. It is a text from his mother about Sunday dinner and expensive bakery bread. He smiles. It is a tiny, ordinary moment, but it means absolutely everything. We stay with Ronan that night, as he sits on his back porch, nursing a cold beer and watching the stars blink into the dark sky. His shoulder still throbs with a dull ache whenever rain rolls in. He still wakes up sweating from nightmares more often than he admits. But he is breathing, he is genuinely trying, and listen, that is a massive step up from the man he was 5 years ago. Back when he had all the power in the world and used it to burn his own house down. He pulls out his phone, opens his notes, and stares at that simple mantra he wrote. Be better, keep going. He taps the screen and adds 2 more words. Don't stop. He slides the phone into his pocket, finishes his drink, and goes inside to get some rest. Just a flawed man putting one foot forward, day after grueling day. Let's check in on the other side of this tragedy. Miles away, in a quiet house Ronan will never set foot inside. Iris gently tucks her little girl into bed. She kisses her forehead, walks down the stairs, and curls up by a crackling fire, with a book she has been meaning to read. The peaceful life she built from the rubble just keeps moving forward. One wonderfully boring day at a time, completely without him. And you know what? That is perfectly okay. It is not a magical fairy tale ending. And it is not a devastating tragedy either. It is just okay. Because sometimes, the credits do not roll on a grand reunion. Sometimes, the bravest thing 2 shattered people can do is walk in opposite directions and learn to heal alone. It is the only honest way this chaotic story could ever end. As the restless city winds down and millions drift off to sleep, we come back to Ronan for one final shot. He closes his eyes. And for the first time in a very long time, he dreams of absolutely nothing. No blood, no suffocating regrets. No ghosts chasing him through the dark, just the quiet, heavy peace of a tired man who finally dropped his weapons and stopped running from his own reflection. It might not look like a massive victory to anyone else, but for him it is everything. It is enough. You and I watched him tear his soul apart. And now we get the privilege to watch him simply exist in the quiet. The brutal irony of it all is that losing the love of his life was the exact price he had to pay to finally figure out how to live. Roll the credits.
One of the most mature lessons in this story is that redemption does not always lead to reunion. Ronan wants to become better, but becoming better does not mean Iris owes him forgiveness, love, or another chance. This is a powerful and realistic message. Many stories suggest that if a person regrets their mistakes deeply enough, they should be rewarded with the person they lost. But real life does not work that way. Some damage cannot be undone. Some wounds heal only when distance remains. Iris has survived Ronan, survived Adrian, and survived the painful process of rebuilding herself. Her peace matters more than Ronan's need for closure. Ronan's real growth begins when he accepts this. At first, he still wants to see Iris, warn her, explain himself, and perhaps be seen as someone changed. But by the end, he understands that loving her now means letting her go. He does not chase her. He does not demand forgiveness. He does not turn his pain into another burden for her to carry. This is an important educational lesson. Apology is not a transaction. Saying sorry does not guarantee access to the person you hurt. True accountability means accepting consequences, even when those consequences include permanent separation. Ronan's journey becomes meaningful because he stops trying to win back the past. Instead, he begins building a better future through quiet, honest work. He teaches financial literacy, helps people leaving prison, cares for his mother, and chooses to improve one day at a time. For viewers, the message is powerful. Redemption is not about being loved again by the person you hurt. Redemption is about becoming someone who no longer causes the same harm. Sometimes the best proof of change is not returning. It is finally learning how to leave someone in peace.